Chapter 652. Lin Yuten looked at the purple fox fire in front of him excitedly, then took out a jade box and sealed the purple fox fire inside. Tang Ao saw Lin Yuten's method of preserving the fire and nodded to himself. Lin Yuten was indeed someone who dealt with fire frequently. Lin Yuten was also shocked that Tang Ao let Xia Qinyu give him the purple fox fire so easily. In Lin Yuten's opinion, the reason he dared to pay first was because he was a warrior of the 7th floor of Linghai Jing, so he didn't have to worry about Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu playing any trick. On the contrary, Xia Qinyu was only a warrior of the 5th floor of Linghai Jing, and although Lin Yuten couldn't see through Tang Ao's strength, he thought that Tang Ao was most likely a warrior of the 5th floor of Linghai Jing, and at most a warrior of the 6th level of the Sea of Souls realm. Lin Yuten didn't care about this kind of strength at all. Therefore, it was impossible for Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu to play any tricks on him. If Lin Yuten wanted to go back on his word, he could kill Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu after getting the purple fox fire, and then take back what belonged to him. Although Lin Yuten would not do that, he believed that not all the warriors at the 7th level of the Sea of Souls realm would make the same choice as him in this situation. Tang Ao saw Lin Yuten's expression change, and guessed what he was thinking. However, Tang Ao only smiled slightly. Lin Yuten was indeed a warrior of the 7th floor of Linghai Jing, but after Tang Ao refined the 300th level of the primordial sacred sky bow, he really wasn't afraid of the warriors of the 7th floor of Linghai Jing. If Lin Yuten kept his promise and left after the deal, it would be fine. However, if he dared to do anything, Tang Ao would immediately let him know the power of the primordial sacred sky bow. Moreover, with the assistance of Xia Qinyu's mysterious clear mirror, once Tang Ao and Lin Yuten fought, Lin Yuten would most likely be left here. However, only Tang Ao knew about these things. Lin Yuten would never have thought of it. Of course, if Lin Yuten had known that Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu had an 8th grade divine weapon and a 9th grade divine weapon respectively, the snow monsters that Lin Yuten had just killed might not have been snow monsters. Even now, Tang Ao could not help but sigh at Lin Yuten's incomparably sharp sword. That kind of speed and lethality was definitely enough to kill Tang Ao. Thus, if Lin Yuten were to stand against Tang Ao, she would definitely become a formidable opponent for Tang Ao. Therefore, Tang Ao was still unwilling to have any conflict with Lin Yuten, and this was the most likely time to have a conflict with her. Now that Lin Yuten had obtained the purple fox fire, Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu were merely 2 weak warriors from the 5th floor of Linghai Jing in Lin Yuten's eyes. After obtaining the purple fox fire, Lin Yuten would most likely turn against him. However, Tang Ao had still underestimated Lin Yuten. Lin Yuten did not intend to fight and even told Tang Ao the truth. "Brother Tang Ao, to be honest, I am a peak warrior from the 7th floor of Linghai Jing. If I were to go back on my word now, does Brother Tang Ao have any way to deal with me?" Tang Ao had long known that Lin Yuten was a warrior from the 7th floor of Linghai Jing. Therefore, when Lin Yuten said that he was a warrior from the 7th floor of Linghai Jing, Tang Ao's expression did not change at all. However, Xia Qinyu did not know that Lin Yuten was a warrior from the 7th floor of Linghai Jing. Immediately, Xia Qinyu became vigilant. Chapter 653. However, Tang Ao wasn't nervous at all, because Lin Yuten had no intention of making a move. If Lin Yuten really wanted to do so, not only would he not say it, but he would also immediately get rid of Xia Qinyu, who was slightly weaker, and then fight with Tang Ao, whose strength he couldn't see through. After Lin Yuten finished speaking, he kept looking at Tang Ao. He wanted to see from Tang Ao's expression whether Tang Ao was pretending to be calm or really had a card up his sleeve. After watching for a while, he saw confidence in Tang Ao. That confidence definitely came from his strength. In other words, if he dared to make a move, Tang Ao was very confident that he could kill him. Although Lin Yuten didn't know what other tricks Tang Ao had up his sleeve, he believed in his own judgment. "Brother Tang Ao, This is my voice transmission jade talisman. If I obtain a fire crystal in the Underworld Emperor's Mystic Realm, or at the trade fair after the Mystic Realm ends, I will definitely extract a trace of the fire source from the purple fox fire, and give it to junior sister Xia. As Lin Yuten spoke, he handed a jade talisman to Xia Qianyu. However, after Xia Qianyu found out that Lin Yuten was a warrior from the 7th floor of Linghai Jing, she was very vigilant and even a little afraid of him. Seeing that Lin Yuten was embarrassed, Tang Ao reached out and took the jade talisman from Lin Yuten. Then, he said to Lin Yuten, "Then, Brother Lin, let's part ways here." After Lin Yuten walked far away, Xia Qianyu heaved a sigh of relief. Then, she looked at Tang Ao and asked, "Senior brother Tang Ao, is Lin Yuten really a warrior from the 7th floor of Linghai Jing?" "That's right. Although his method of hiding his cultivation is not bad, I saw it clearly with the skypole eyes. This person is a peak expert from the 7th floor of Linghai Jing." Lin Yuten was the 5th cultivator from the 7th floor of Linghai Jing that Tang Ao had met in the snowfield. Before that, Tang Ao had also met Murong Xiao, Fang Hongjian, and the others. However, among the 5 of them, Tang Ao felt that Lin Yuten was probably the strongest. Now that Tang Ao had the primordial sacred heaven bow, he had even refined the 300th layer of the star restriction. Naturally, it was not a problem for him to deal with ordinary warriors from the 7th floor of Linghai Jing. However, if he were to fight against Lin Yuten, who was one of the top warriors from the 7th floor of Linghai Jing, Tang Ao's strength was still a little too low. Tang Ao did not have any movement techniques that he could use now. Furthermore, because Tang Ao was too strong in his previous life, he did not cultivate movement techniques at all. Therefore, Tang Ao's current fighting style was still fierce and overbearing. However, this way, Tang Ao would be easily killed by the powerful warriors from the 7th floor of Linghai Jing. The primordial sacred heaven bow could definitely suppress the warriors from the 7th floor of Linghai Jing from a distance. However, once the warriors from the 7th floor of Linghai Jing used their agile movement techniques to close in, Tang Ao might not even have the chance to use the primordial sacred heaven bow. Now that Xia Qinyu was by Tang Ao's side, Tang Ao and Tang Ao did not have to worry about this problem. This was because the Tai Ching mysterious mirror could suppress a warrior's speed, spiritual power, and soul power. It could even restrain a warrior. It could be said that as long as Xia Qinyu was around, even if the warriors from the 9th floor of Linghai Jing came, they would not be able to get away with it. Although they did not dare to say that they could kill the warriors from the 9th floor of Linghai Jing, it was impossible for them to escape unscathed. "Senior brother Tang Ao, this is for you." While Tang Ao was pondering, Xia Qinyu handed the 9 heavenly elixir scrolls to Tang Ao. Chapter 654. The 9 scrolls of the heavenly elixir contained a lot of information. Even with Tang Ao's soul power, it took him nearly 4 hours to copy all the contents of the 9 scrolls of the heavenly elixir. After copying the contents of the 9 scrolls of the heavenly elixir onto a blank jade slip, Tang Ao felt a tingling pain in his sea of consciousness. This was due to excessive soul power consumption. Tang Ao had only heard of the 9 scrolls of the heavenly elixir before, but he had never seen or come into contact with them. Although Tang Ao had a good relationship with the heavenly elixir sect, the 9 scrolls of the heavenly elixir were passed down from generation to generation. As an outsider, Tang Ao naturally had no chance to see them. After copying the 9 scrolls of the heavenly elixir, Tang Ao also understood why the past sect masters of the heavenly elixir sect could become 8th grade alchemists and even 9th grade alchemists. This was because the contents of the 9 scrolls of the heavenly elixir were too complete and exquisite. All the treasures of heaven and earth in the black-yellow continent were recorded in the 9 scrolls of the heavenly elixir. In addition, even the spiritual grasses and spiritual medicines of the 5 elements demon domain were recorded in great detail. Another point was that there were also some treasures of heaven and earth recorded in it. However, Tang Ao had not heard of these treasures of heaven and earth in his 2 lives of cultivation. He had not even heard of the places where these treasures of heaven and earth grew. When Tang Ao was copying just now, there was a kind of treasure of heaven and earth called the mysterious heavenly ice jade essence. Tang Ao had a deep impression of it. According to the records of the 9 scrolls of the heavenly elixir, this mysterious heavenly ice jade essence grew under the 10,000-year-old ice of the extreme cold ice field. It could sublimate the physique of a martial artist with a special physique. Tang Ao had the hidden jade in stone body in both lives. Although the hidden jade in stone body was still extremely powerful, Tang Ao still faintly discovered that his hidden jade in stone body seemed to be incomplete and had a trace of defect. Tang Ao felt that as long as these defects could be repaired, the hidden jade in stone body could complete a transformation. Originally, Tang Ao felt that his idea was funny, but now it seemed that Tang Ao idea was not only not funny, but also very forward-looking. It was just that the extreme cold ice field where the mysterious heavenly ice jade essence grew. Tang Ao had visited nearly 90% of the places in the black-yellow continent. However, he did not know that there was a place called the extreme cold ice field in the black-yellow continent. Tang Ao sent his soul power into the jade slip of the 9 heavenly pill scrolls and found the column that recorded the profound heavenly ice chalcedony. In this column, it first introduced the effects and origin of the profound heavenly ice chalcedony, then introduced the mysterious elixir jade scrolls of the heavenly elixir in scrolls, and mysterious elixir. After that, he introduced a few pill recipes that used the mysterious heaven ice chalcedony, as well as the things to take note of when refining them. These were not what Tang Ao wanted to see, so Tang Ao continued to read. After a while, Tang Ao saw the heavenly elixir sect master's description of the mysterious heavenly ice jade essence. Tang Ao first saw the heavenly elixir first sect master's description of the mysterious heavenly ice jade essence. But what made Tang Ao feel helpless was that the heavenly elixir first sect master had no fate with the mysterious heavenly ice jade essence. Tang Ao continued to read and saw the second sect master's description of the mysterious heavenly ice jade essence. During a battle with an enemy, I was seriously injured and fell to the bottom of the extreme cold ice field. I was on the verge of death. Coincidentally, I found a spiritual object underground. It had a fragrant smell and a transparent azure color. I was attracted by it and took a piece and swallowed it. After swallowing it, I felt a bone-chilling cold. The cold air froze me from the inside out. Chapter 655. After 1,000 years, I woke up. When I woke up, I found that my injuries had healed, and my sky-piercing eyes had 108 snow petals. Before this, my sky-piercing eyes could only produce 72 snow petals. Tang Ao didn't expect the heavenly elixir second sect master to also have the sky-piercing eyes. However, Tang Ao understood what he meant. The sky-piercing eyes was a special physique, and when it was used, snowflake petals would appear in his eyes. When Tang Ao used the sky-piercing eyes to its limit, a snowflake with 24 petals would appear in his eyes. As for the heavenly elixir second sect master's sky-piercing eyes with 108 snow petals, Tang Ao couldn't imagine how terrifying it would be. Although Tang Ao was very interested in the mysterious heaven ice chalcedony, Tang Ao also knew that Xia Qinyu was anxious. It took Tang Ao 4 hours to inscribe the 9 heavenly elixir scrolls, and another 2 hours to examine the mysterious heaven ice chalcedony. After 6 hours, Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu were still fine, but the motionless frost blood snake was completely buried in the snow. Tang Ao smiled at Xia Qinyu apologetically. "Junior sister Xia, I've made you wait for a long time. The 9 heavenly elixir scrolls really live up to its name. I really made a profit by exchanging a purple fox fire for this jade slip. Xia Qinyu also smiled at Tang Ao's words. Senior brother Tang Ao, you can inscribe this jade slip, but how do you know that Lin Yuten didn't inscribe this jade slip after obtaining it? Xia Qinyu's words poured a bucket of cold water on Tang Ao, and Tang Ao suddenly came to a realization. Lin Yuten's cultivation was at the 7th floor of Linghai Jing. Although Tang Ao was sure that Lin Yuten's soul power wasn't as strong as his own, who knew how long Lin Yuten had obtained the 9 heavenly elixir scrolls? Tang Ao could finish inscribing the 9 heavenly elixir scrolls in 2 hours. No matter how bad Lin Yuten was, she could finish inscribing the 9 heavenly elixir scrolls in 20 hours. Junior sister Xia, you are right. When I heard the name of the 9 heavenly pill scrolls, I completely ignored this matter. If Tang Ao had thought of this earlier, he would have extorted some good things from Lin Yuten. But just now, Tang Ao was intimidated by the Heavenly Dan 9 volume and did not think about it at all. Tang Ao had seen the elixir refined by the Heavenly Elixir sect master in his previous life, so he longed for the Heavenly Elixir 9 scrolls. Seeing the pained look on Tang Ao's face, Xia Qinyu hurriedly comforted him. Senior brother Tang Ao, although it is very likely that Lin Yuten has recorded the 9 heavenly elixir scrolls, didn't he also give me a peach blossom fire? If senior brother Tang Ao needs it, I will give the peach blossom fire to senior brother Tang Ao. When Xia Qinyu spoke, she handed the peach blossom fire to Tang Ao without hesitation. After you refine this peach blossom fire, you can learn alchemy. You have the highest quality wood spiritual root, so you are the most suitable person to become an alchemist. The 9 heavenly elixir scrolls are very detailed. If you learn alchemy according to the 9 heavenly elixir scrolls, I am afraid that in the future I will come to ask you to refine pills. At that time you can't refuse. Tang Ao said half jokingly and half seriously. But senior brother Tang Ao, why should I help you refine pills? After Tang Ao finished speaking, Xia Qinyu deliberately asked in a thoughtless manner. Chapter 656. Senior apprentice brother Tang Ao, where are we going next? Are we going to learn alchemy in the snow cave? Xia Qinyu saw that Tang Ao seemed to be very interested in the heavenly elixir 9 scrolls, so Xia Qinyu thought that Tang Ao couldn't wait to learn alchemy in the snow cave. However, to Xia Qinyu's surprise, Tang Ao shook his head. There's no hurry to learn alchemy. Right now there are snow monsters everywhere in the snow field. Let's go hunt some first. It's just that the heavenly elixir 9 scrolls consumed most of my soul power. Let me rest for a while before we set off. After Tang Ao's soul power broke through the life and death realm, his recovery speed was very fast. In less than the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, Tang Ao's consumed soul power was almost fully restored. After recovering his soul power, Tang Ao scanned his surroundings with his vast soul power, and everything became very clear. The snow field was bare everywhere, but there were many snowy mountains that blocked his vision. After Tang Ao scanned his surroundings with his vast soul power, Tang Ao found that there were no martial artists around, but there were many snow monsters. Tang Ao identified a direction and flew over with Xia Qinyu. Before, flying on the snow field was very dangerous, but now that Tang Ao's soul power was so powerful, it was enough to avoid some of the dangers that were about to come. After flying for a while, a group of snow monsters appeared in front of Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu. There were a total of 11 snow monsters. Among them, the strongest was an 8th-level spiritual sea realm snow monster, and the weakest were 2 from the 5th floor of Linghai Jing. The rest of the snow monsters were between the 6th level of spiritual sea realm to the 7th floor of Linghai Jing. After seeing this group of snow monsters, Xia Qinyu's pretty face slightly paled. Senior apprentice brother Tang Ao, why don't we go somewhere else? There are so many snow monsters here. Xia Qinyu didn't expect Tang Ao to be so daring as to target a group of snow monsters. Junior apprentice Sister Xia, it's fine. This time, we'll fight them together. Oh, and the frost blood snake as well. As far as Tang Ao was concerned, he and Xia Qinyu, as well as the frost blood snake, wouldn't pose any risk to them. However, Xia Qinyu was too timid. After seeing so many high-level snow monsters, she retreated. All right then. Seeing Tang Ao's confident look, Xia Qinyu knew that she would not be able to persuade Tang Ao to leave this time. Since Tang Ao would not leave, Xia Qinyu could only try her best to assist Tang Ao. In the snowfield, Tang Ao had helped her a lot. Now that Tang Ao needed her help, Xia Qinyu naturally wouldn't decline. However, Xia Qinyu was wrong this time. Just as Xia Qinyu was about to assist Tang Ao suddenly said, "Junior apprentice Sister Xia, I'll kill 10 of these 11 snow monsters first. The remaining one will be for you to practice on the 5th floor of Linghai Jing. You have to be prepared." After saying that, a golden light flashed on Tang Ao's body, and he summoned the battle sage Bone Life Soul. Then, Tang Ao charged into the snow monsters without hesitation. Tang Ao's target was a snow monster from the 5th floor of Linghai Jing. As Tang Ao's attack was too sudden, the snow monster did not even have time to react before it was killed by Tang Ao's punch. The reason why Tang Ao chose to kill the snow monster was because it was holding a human heart in its hand. Although Tang Ao knew that the snow monsters in the snowfield were not kind, Tang Ao was still somewhat angry when he saw their cruel means. After killing a snow monster with a surprise punch, Tang Ao successfully attracted the attention of the other snow monsters. However, Tang Ao immediately retreated after his strike. In midair, Tang Ao beckoned with his hand and the primordial sacred sky bow appeared in Tang Ao's hand. Then, Tang Ao pulled the bowstring and aimed at a 6th-stage Spirit Sea Realm snow monster. Go! Tang Ao loosened his grip and the incomparably sharp, profound heavenly arrow flew toward the snow monster. Facing the terrifying profound heavenly arrow, the snow monster let out an angry roar and fiercely swung its claws at the profound heavenly arrow as if it wanted to shatter it. However, before the snow monster's sharp claws could touch the black heaven arrow, it pierced its heart and nailed it to the ground. Chapter 657. Although Xia Qinyu had always known that Tang Ao was strong, she did not expect him to be this strong. Tang Ao killed 2 snow monsters in a single move. Xia Qinyu knew that Tang Ao was strong, but she did not expect him to be this strong. Xia Qinyu was originally very afraid when she saw the dozen or so snow monsters, but after seeing how terrifying Tang Ao's combat strength was, she wasn't worried anymore. When Tang Ao circulated the battle sage Bone Life Soul to charge at the snow monsters again, Xia Qinyu wanted to summon the Great Purity Mystic Mirror to fight alongside Tang Ao. However, before she could take it out, Tang Ao appeared beside her like a ghost. At the same time, the primordial sacred sky bow in Tang Ao's hand was put away by Tang Ao. Tang Ao came to Xia Qinyu's side and immediately said to her, "Junior Sister Xia, don't take out the Great Purity Mystic Mirror. An expert is here." Xia Qinyu was alarmed when she heard that. Even for someone like Murong Xiao, Tang Ao had never addressed them as an expert. For Tang Ao to say that an expert was coming, how powerful was this expert? Senior brother Tang Ao is a warrior from the 9th floor of Linghai Jing? From Xia Qinyu's point of view, the only person who could be considered an expert in Tang Ao's heart was probably a warrior from the 9th floor of Linghai Jing. After all, Tang Ao was only at the 5th floor of Linghai Jing. The difference between him and a warrior from the 9th floor of Linghai Jing was like a chasm. Of course, Xia Qinyu definitely couldn't see through Tang Ao's cultivation level. If Tang Ao hadn't said it himself, Xia Qinyu would find it hard to believe that Tang Ao's cultivation level was the same as hers. However, Tang Ao's combat prowess was extremely terrifying. In Xia Qinyu's opinion, even 10 of her combined wouldn't be enough to defeat Tang Ao. After Xia Qinyu asked, Tang Ao smiled bitterly. Tang Ao really hoped that the cultivators from the 9th floor of Linghai Jing would come. It's a life and death realm warrior. A life and death realm warrior? Xia Qinyu looked at Tang Ao in shock. In Xia Qinyu's sect, the highest cultivation level was only the 3rd level of the Spirit Sea realm. As for life and death realm warriors, Xia Qinyu had never seen one before. Although Xia Qinyu had never seen a life and death realm warrior, she had heard many stories about them. On the path of martial arts, starting from the Sea of Souls realm, every small realm was like a chasm that was hard to cross, and every big realm was like the difference between heaven and earth. Although it was easy for Tang Ao to fight someone of a higher realm now, it was because of Tang Ao's powerful life spirit, extraordinary physique, and the primordial sacred sky bow and many other factors. Otherwise, it would be extremely difficult for a normal warrior to fight someone of a higher realm. In a battle of a higher realm, a normal warrior's spiritual power, soul power, life spirit, and spirit weapon would be inferior to their opponent. In this case, it would be good enough to stay alive, let alone fight someone of a higher realm. Xia Qinyu looked around cautiously, but until now, the life and death realm warrior that Tang Ao mentioned had not appeared. However, Xia Qinyu didn't think that Tang Ao would lie to her on purpose. Therefore, Xia Qinyu only looked at Tang Ao in confusion. In response, Tang Ao gave Xia Qinyu a reassuring smile, then looked in a certain direction. After Tang Ao looked in that direction, a figure slowly appeared in midair. Then, like a feather, he slowly floated down from midair. The moment the young man appeared, Tang Ao immediately used sky polar eyes to check his cultivation level. After checking that the young man was at the 1st level of the life and death realm, Tang Ao let out a sigh of relief. Chapter 658. However, there were 5 first-stage life and death realm martial artists in front of Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu. Tang Ao had always been cautious ever since he started cultivating. Although he had experienced countless life and death situations, Tang Ao had never encountered such a dangerous situation. He definitely could not beat 5 first-stage life and death realm martial artists. He definitely could not escape. Right now, Tang Ao wasn't just stuck in a dilemma. He had no way out and no way out. If Tang Ao had a choice, it would be to wait for death. It might not be difficult for Tang Ao to die, but it was absolutely impossible for Tang Ao to wait for death. However, Tang Ao did not know their intentions, so he could only watch the 5 people vigilantly. Once the 5 people attacked, Tang Ao would have to respond instantly. Given his current strength, life and death could be decided in an instant against life and death realm martial artists. If Tang Ao could not grasp the timing of the 5 people's attack, it would be as easy for them to kill Tang Ao as it was for Tang Ao to kill the snow monster. Senior brother Chu Feiyu, this ant seems to want to resist. A silver-haired young man in white said before the blue-clothed man could speak. Oh, junior brother Bai, you can see through this kid's cultivation? The reason Chu Feiyu had not made a move yet was because he had some doubts. Chu Feiyu was a cautious person. He would not easily make a move once he had doubts. Once Chu Feiyu made a move, the other party would definitely die. This was why the Heavenly Sun continent had sent Chu Feiyu to secretly sneak into the black-yellow continent with the other 4 people. Bai Feng immediately answered Chu Feiyu's question. This kid is very good at hiding his cultivation. Even I can't see through it. If that's the case, why did junior brother Bai say that he is an ant? Chu Feiyu's voice was cold as he spoke. It was obvious that he was very dissatisfied with Bai Feng's words. However, Bai Feng did not care about Chu Feiyu's attitude. Instead, he smiled and said, although I can't see through this kid's cultivation, I am a blacksmith. Not long ago, I just happened to forge a spirit measuring instrument. This spirit measuring instrument can sense the degree of spirit aura in a martial artist's body and determine the martial artist's cultivation. Bai Feng paused for a moment before continuing. According to the spirit measuring instrument, This kid's cultivation is only on the 5th floor of Linghai Jing. If it wasn't for the fact that this spirit measuring instrument could even sense the cultivation level of the Realm Lord's master, I would really suspect that there's something wrong with this spirit measuring instrument. When Bai Feng revealed Tang Ao's cultivation, Tang Ao was slightly shocked. Tang Ao originally thought that there was no way in the world to see through the hidden cultivation of the hidden jade body in stone. However, it was only now that Tang Ao realized that there was always someone better out there. This silver-haired young man was actually able to detect his cultivation with just a spiritual weapon. An innate ability like the heavenly polarity pupils was 1 in a billion among all martial artists. However, things like spiritual weapons could be refined as much as one wanted. In other words, if this silver-haired young man could see through Tang Ao's strength today, then in the future, anyone who held a spirit measuring instrument would be able to see through Tang Ao's cultivation. Since they are just 2 ants from the 5th floor of Linghai Jing, then let's kill them. This time, it was a woman who spoke. In terms of beauty, among all the women that Tang Ao had seen, only Luo Tsai could be compared to her. Although Xia Qianyu was also a stunning beauty, she was still a little lacking compared to this woman. Chapter 659. Although this group of people was led by Chu Feiyu, Kong Nianfei's words were equally effective. Chu Feiyu was only a direct disciple of the Heavenly Sun Continent's Realm Lord, but Kong Nianfei was the Realm Lord's illegitimate daughter. Therefore, after concubine Kong Nian spoke, the shirtless youth among the 5 people stepped forward. I am Wu Ku from the Heavenly Sun Continent. I don't feel pain when I kill. Of course, you can choose to commit suicide. If you have any last words, you can say them now. Although I won't help you pass on your last words, I like to hear them. Wu Ku stood in front of Tang Ao like an iron tower. Even though Wu Ku had not made a move yet, Tang Ao could feel a strong pressure from him. Tang Ao was a 9th-level astral-reaching realm martial artist in his previous life. Not to mention seeing, he had even killed countless life and death realm martial artists. However, among all the life and death realm warriors, Tang Ao had never met someone who could give off such pressure at the first layer of the life and death realm. This could only mean one thing, and that was that Wu Ku was very powerful. Even among the first-level life and death realm warriors, he was one of the best. Facing Wu Ku's provocation, Tang Ao didn't reply. Tang Ao was now thinking of a way out. If it were any other place, with Tang Ao and Xia Qianyu's current cultivation base, facing 5 first-layer life and death realm enemies would be certain death. However, this strange snowfield was different from other places. The ice and snow here would suppress a martial artist's soul power. Although Tang Ao's soul power had broken through to the life and death realm, it was not suppressed in the snowfield. However, this was because Tang Ao had only reached a depth of 300 feet in the deepest part of the underground. However, the deeper one went in the snowfield, the greater the suppression of soul power. The soul power of a life and death realm martial artist wouldn't be suppressed at a depth of 300 feet, so Tang Ao didn't believe that it wouldn't be suppressed at a depth of 300 feet. As long as their soul power was suppressed, these life and death realm martial artists would never be able to find Tang Ao and Xia Qianyu, no matter how strong they were. Facing 5 life and death realm martial artists, Xia Qianyu had already lost all hope. At this moment, Xia Qianyu was lost in thought, and no one knew what she was thinking. What? Do you have any last words? As Wu Ku spoke, he slowly walked towards Tang Ao and Xia Qianyu. Seeing Wu Ku approaching, Tang Ao knew it was time to act. When Wu Ku got a little closer, the frost blood snake that had been hiding underground suddenly jumped out. Although Wu Ku's eyes were fixed on Tang Ao, he had also discovered the frost blood snake hidden underground. Therefore, the moment the frost blood snake leaped out, Wu Ku's iron fist landed on its incomparably hard body. However, although the frost blood snake's body was extremely hard, Wu Ku was a true life and death realm warrior. Therefore, under Wu Ku's iron fist, the frost blood snake was instantly destroyed by Wu Ku. Only a part of its soul escaped. The moment Wu Ku attacked the frost blood snake, Tang Ao also grabbed Xia Qinyu, who was in a daze, and fled underground. After Tang Ao dove into the ground, a vast soul power immediately swept out and swept the frost blood snake's soul over. Then, Tang Ao desperately dove into the ice and snow underground. These days, Wu Ku and the others had even killed martial artists on the 9th floor of Linghai Jing. Therefore, Wu Ku really didn't expect that Tang Ao, a mere martial artist from the 5th floor of Linghai Jing, could actually play such tricks. Chapter 660. When the two of them first entered the underground ice and snow, Tang Ao still held Xia Qinyu's hand and continued to move deeper into the ice and snow. However, when Xia Qinyu came back to her senses, a transparent butterfly wing appeared behind her. Xia Qinyu then grabbed Tang Ao's hand and fled into the ground at an even faster speed. Wu Ku was about to catch up with Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu, but he did not expect Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu to suddenly accelerate. They must have used some kind of secret technique. They are just two ants from the 5th floor of Linghai Jing. When their spiritual power is exhausted, I will teach you a lesson. Wu Ku looked at Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu, who were fleeing below with eyes full of disdain. Tang Ao was very happy that Xia Qinyu was able to unleash such potential in a life-and-death situation. However, Tang Ao also thought of the problem that Wu Ku had just thought of. The spiritual power of a life-and-death realm warrior was tens to hundreds of times more than the 5th floor of Linghai Jing. Although his and Xia Qinyu's speed was slightly faster than Wu Ku's, once Xia Qinyu's spiritual power was exhausted, the two of them would definitely die. The only thing that made Tang Ao happy right now was that Chu Feiyu and the others didn't seem to care about him at all. As a result, Tang Ao could sense that Wu Ku was the only one who had chased after him. The other four were still on the snowy plains. It would be impossible for Tang Ao to deal with 5 life-and-death realm warriors at the same time. However, if he only had to deal with 1 life-and-death realm warrior, Tang Ao felt that although he had no chance of winning, he would not die. Therefore, when Xia Qinyu escaped with Tang Ao was secretly thinking about how to deal with Wu Ku. Now that Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu had escaped 500 feet underground, Tang Ao felt that his soul power was gradually being suppressed. Not only was he not worried, but he was also happy. Right now, Tang Ao's soul power was also at the life and death realm. Therefore, Tang Ao's soul power was suppressed, and so was Wu Ku's soul power. Wu Ku sensed it the moment his soul power was suppressed. Not good, there's something strange about this ice and snow. Their line of sight is obstructed here, and if their soul power is also suppressed, these two ants will really escape, Wu Ku muttered to himself as he chased after them. Wu Ku hesitated for a moment as he watched Xia Qinyu and Xia Qinyu's figures continuously burrowing into the ground. In the end, he took out a jade box from his storage ring. There was a talisman lying quietly in the jade box. This talisman was used by Wu Ku to save his life, so Wu Ku really did not want to waste this talisman here. However, if he returned empty-handed this time, he would definitely be ridiculed by the few fellows above. Thinking of this, Wu Ku's heart hardened. He crushed the jade box and took out the talisman. This talisman was called the space-piercing talisman, and it could allow one to travel a distance of 300 meters in an instant. Now that Wu Ku and Tang Ao were only 400 feet apart, it was more than enough to use this space-piercing talisman. However, Wu Ku was still a little hesitant. This space-piercing talisman was too precious. Wu Ku had obtained 3 space-piercing talismans when he explored a ruin, and now he only had one left. Chapter 661. After channeling 90% of his spiritual power into the primordial sacred sky bow, Tang Ao loosened his grip, and an extremely sharp mysterious sky arrow shot toward Wu Ku. Wu Ku subconsciously wanted to dodge when he saw Tang Ao's mysterious sky arrow, but he was shocked to find that his aura had been locked on and he could not dodge at all. Tang Ao did not think that this arrow would be able to kill Wu Ku. In Tang Ao's opinion, a life-and-death realm martialist would more or less have something on him. The purpose of Tang Ao's arrow was to temporarily stop Wu Ku's footstep. As long as Xia Qinyu brought him further underground, Tang Ao's soul power would be completely suppressed. Similarly, Wu Ku's soul power would naturally be useless after Tang Ao's soul power was suppressed. Tang Ao could use the sky polar eyes to observe his surroundings while Wu Ku did not have the sky polar eyes, so he could not use his soul power. He was simply blind when he was hundreds of meters deep in the ice and snow. Wu Ku did not hesitate to activate the space-penetrating talisman when he realized that he had been locked on by the primordial sacred sky bow. However, the direction Wu Ku used the space-penetrating talisman was not underground but above ground. Wu Ku knew that Tang Ao's arrow would not be able to kill him, but it would definitely be able to seriously injure him. They had obtained a lot of good stuff from the Tianyang continent to the Netherworld Emperor's secret realm. Once he was seriously injured, the other four would definitely covet his things. Moreover, Wu Ku believed that he would most likely be killed by the other four. Although the five of them had been ordered by the Realm Lord to infiltrate the Black-Yellow continent and kill the genius martialists there, they were not as close as they looked. However, the five of them were not too different in strength and did not have much conflict of interest. Hence, they had been able to reach this place safely. If any of them had been seriously injured along the way, Wu Ku would have definitely sent them off without hesitation. Wu Ku felt that the other four were thinking the same thing. At that moment, Chu Feiyu and the other three had yet to leave. In Chu Feiyu's opinion, given Wu Ku's strength, killing 2 ants from the 5th floor of Linghai Jing would be a piece of cake. While the four of them were talking, Wu Ku's figure suddenly flashed out. Wu Ku's speed was definitely not that fast, because before Wu Ku appeared, the four of them had not sensed anything. After Wu Ku appeared, Chu Feiyu frowned and waved his hand. A jade folding fan appeared behind Wu Ku. The black heaven arrow that was chasing after Wu Ku collided with the jade folding fan with a ding, knocking it off. Then, it shot toward Wu Jiong. However, because the folding fan blocked it, the power of the mysterious heaven arrow was reduced by 60%. When the mysterious heaven arrow flew toward Wu Ku again, Wu Ku suddenly punched out. A dragon's roar and tiger's roar came from Wu Ku's fist wind, and the mysterious heaven arrow was shattered by Wu Ku's punch. After Wu Jiong shattered the mysterious heaven arrow shot by Tang Ao, he immediately bowed to Chu Feiyu. "Thank you for helping, eldest senior brother." Chu Feiyu waved his hand, and the jade folding fan flew back. The jade folding fan was called the Yukuan fan, and it was Chu Feiyu's spirit weapon. It was just that this spiritual tool was used to attack, not to defend. Chu Feiyu played with the Yukuan fan and said, "I misjudged these 2 scoundrels just now. I didn't expect them to be so capable." Seeing that Wu Ku had returned empty-handed and was being chased by the mysterious heaven arrow, Chu Feiyu did not need to ask to know that Wu Ku had failed. "Eldest senior brother, I." Although Chu Feiyu did not say anything, Wu Ku still looked a little guilty. Chapter 662. However, Yen Yen did not expect Tang Ao to be as unlucky as him to encounter Chu Feiyu and the others. Back then, Yen Yen had only encountered Chu Feiyu and was almost beaten to death by him. He did not expect Chu Feiyu to have 4 companions and all of them were life and death realm warriors. At the same time, Yen Yen secretly admired Tang Ao for being able to escape unscathed under such circumstances. At that moment, Yen Yen really wanted to talk to Tang Ao. After all, Chu Feiyu and the others were considered his and Tang Ao's common enemies. Moreover, Tang Ao was strong and qualified to be his helper. However, Yen Yen also knew that this was not a place to stay for long. Hence, he slowly disappeared after staying there for a few breaths. Wu Ku's figure came from afar not long after Yen Yan's figure disappeared. However, Wu Ku was the only one who came this time. As for Chu Feiyu and the others, they were nowhere to be seen. The reason why Wu Ku returned was naturally because of Tang Ao's primordial sacred sky bow. Tang Ao was merely a kid from the 5th floor of Linghai Jing, yet he could injure Yen Yen, who was in the life and death realm, with the primordial sacred sky bow. If Yen Yen had the primordial sacred sky bow, wouldn't he be able to kill Chu Feiyu and the others? Moreover, Wu Ku felt that he would be able to break through to the 9th stage of the life and death realm in less than 100 years with what he had gained from the Emperor Ming's secret realm. Once he reached the 9th stage of the life and death realm, he would be invincible in both the Black-Yellow continent and the Tianyang continent with the powerful bow and arrow. Thinking of this, Wu Ku went back into the snow cave that he had just escaped from without hesitation. Although Wu Ku was still afraid of Tang Ao's mysterious sky arrow, he could tell that Tang Ao's spiritual power was almost depleted after using that arrow. Therefore, Tang Ao would not be able to use the primordial sacred sky bow for a short period of time. Wu Ku also noticed that the primordial sacred sky bow had been activated for a long time. Previously, he had fallen for Tang Ao's trick because he didn't understand it. Now that he was prepared, it would be difficult for Tang Ao to injure him with the primordial sacred sky bow. Therefore, Wu Ku did not hesitate to chase in the direction where Tang Ao and the other two escaped. However, Tang Ao and Xia Qianyu had already run far away, and they were 1,000 feet underground, so Wu Ku couldn't use his soul power. After Tang Ao had forced Wu Jiong to retreat, Xia Qianyu had been running with Tang Ao. Only when the spiritual power in Xia Qianyu's body was completely exhausted did Xia Qianyu faint. After Xia Qianyu fainted, Tang Ao hugged Xia Qianyu. Xia Qianyu was too afraid. Originally, Tang Ao thought that 1,000 feet underground would be enough, but Xia Qianyu used her life soul and stimulated her potential, bringing Tang Ao to a depth of 2,000 feet underground. In this depth of ice and snow, Tang Ao's soul power was completely ineffective. Tang Ao tried to stimulate his soul power, but Tang Ao found that his soul power could only reach an inch from the surface of his body. An inch from the surface of his body was not visible to the naked eye. Therefore, Tang Ao sat on the ground with Xia Qianyu in his arms, panting heavily. It was not easy to escape from death this time. Chapter 663. Then Tang Ao took out a thick fox fur coat from his storage ring and wrapped it around him and Xia Qianyu. It wasn't that Tang Ao wanted to take advantage of Xia Qianyu, but it was just too cold in the ice and snow 200 meters below the ground. Even with Tang Ao's powerful body, Tang Ao still felt like his blood was about to freeze. If it was normal cold, he could just circulate his spirit force through his body to expel the cold. But the cold 200 meters below the ground didn't seem to come from the outside, but from the inside. This sounded a bit ridiculous, but this was the feeling that Tang Ao got from the cold at this moment. Moreover, this cold was like maggots that penetrated deep into his bones. Under the effect of this cold, Tang Ao's eyebrows were covered in a layer of frost. The unconscious Xia Qianyu's situation was even more serious than Tang Ao's. At this moment, Xia Qianyu's eyebrows were covered in a layer of frost and even her pretty face was extremely pale. At first, Tang Ao wanted to use his spirit force to expel the cold for her, but Tang Ao found that this kind of cold was not something that could be dispelled by spirit force. After trying several times to no avail, Tang Ao simply hugged Xia Qianyu and used the most primitive method of hugging for warmth to expel the cold for Xia Qianyu. Although this method was primitive, it was fortunately quite effective. After Tang Ao and Xia Qianyu hugged each other, the biting cold actually receded a bit. Although their bodies were still very cold, This kind of cold was something that cultivators like Tang Ao and Xia Qianyu could already adapt to. Xia Qianyu's pale face gradually became rosy, and the frost on Tang Ao's eyebrows also gradually dissipated. Seeing this scene, Tang Ao was overjoyed, but at the same time he thought of a problem. If they wanted to survive 200 meters underground in the ice and snow, did they have to hug each other all the time? Was there no other way to keep warm? Although Tang Ao didn't mind hugging a beauty like Xia Qianyu, the reason why Tang Ao went underground was not to hug Xia Qianyu, but to cultivate and take revenge. Although Tang Ao had refined the 300th layer of the primordial sacred sky bow's star restriction and could severely injure or even kill a life and death realm martial artist with his full strength, the primordial sacred sky bow's star restriction was not enough. However, the activation of the primordial sacred heaven bow required a certain amount of time to lock onto the enemy's aura. If it was a spiritual ocean tier martial artist, it would not be enough. However, the difference in strength between Tang Ao and a life and death realm martial artist was too great. Therefore, it was very easy for Tang Ao to kill his opponent before he could even lock onto his opponent's chi. Moreover, with Tang Ao's current strength, if he wanted to use the primordial sacred sky bow to fight against a life and death realm martial artist, after one strike, the spiritual power in Tang Ao's body would be completely exhausted. Therefore, just like when he was dealing with Wu Ku alone, Tang Ao still dared to shoot an arrow with all his strength. However, if Wu Ku and the other four chased him together, even if Tang Ao could kill one of them, Tang Ao would not shoot the arrow. Because after one arrow, the spiritual power in Tang Ao's body would be exhausted, and he would become a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Fortunately, those people were very conceited just now. After discovering that Tang Ao was only on the 5th floor of Linghai Jing, only Wu Ku chased him. The arrow that Tang Ao shot with all his strength just now would definitely kill any martial artist below the life and death realm. Even a life and death realm martial artist like Wu Ku would not feel good. Chapter 664. Tang Ao was a peak level 9 astral reaching realm martial artist in his previous life, so he naturally knew that Wu Jiong, who was only at the first level of life and death realm, would not be able to break the space and escape. The space ripples around Wu Ku were most likely the effects of spirit items and talismans. No matter how the space ripples around Wu Ku were formed, Tang Ao did not care. Tang Ao did not expect to kill Wu Ku with one arrow. At that time, the reason why Tang Ao had released that arrow with all his strength was to stop Wu Ku's footstep. And now, Tang Ao's goal had obviously been achieved. Being so deep underground, even Tang Ao's sky polar pupil could not penetrate the thick ice to see the information on the ground. After Tang Ao used his heavenly polarity pupils with all his might, he discovered that even the heavenly polarity pupils could only see through the ice and snow up to a distance of 100 zhang. As for the ice and snow below him, he could only see up to a distance of 500 zhang. Tang Ao was amazed by this ice and snow. Not only could this ice and snow suppress soul power, but even the sky polar pupil was being suppressed, which made Tang Ao feel inconceivable. After all, the sky polar pupil could be considered a very special existence in the world. Even if someone could think of setting up some methods to suppress a martial artist's soul power, they would not think of suppressing the martial artist's sky polar pupil. Not to mention the fact that martial artists with the sky polar pupil were 1 in a billion, even suppressing the sky polar pupil was something that Tang Ao had never heard of before. Thinking of this, Tang Ao felt that he had discovered something. But as for what it was, even Tang Ao himself could not tell. Since he could not figure it out, Tang Ao decided not to think about it anymore. For such an unfathomable problem, the best way to deal with it was to keep it in mind. When the time came, he would naturally be able to figure it out. Otherwise, trying to figure it out when he did not have any ideas would be making things difficult for himself. When Tang Ao used the sky polar pupil to look around, Xia Qinyu also slowly woke up. After she woke up, she felt that the surroundings were unusually cold, but her body was still quite warm. Xia Qinyu opened her beautiful big eyes and saw Tang Ao's amazing move. Xia Qinyu realized that Tang Ao was hugging her tightly at this moment. At the same time, he wrapped the two of them tightly in a fox fur coat. "Senior brother Tang Ao, why are you hugging me?" If it weren't for the fact that Tang Ao was just holding her and didn't do anything excessive, Xia Qinyu would really suspect that Tang Ao was harboring evil intentions. "Oh, junior sister Xia, you're awake." The ice and snow in this place were strange. We couldn't use our spiritual power to disperse the cold. When we first came down, we couldn't resist the cold. That was why I had to use the most primitive method of hugging each other to keep warm. Now that junior sister Xia has woken up, we can try other methods. As Tang Ao spoke, he shook off the fox fur coat and let go of Xia Qinyu. Xia Qinyu's body was as soft as cotton candy. When Tang Ao hugged Xia Qinyu's soft and delicate body really made Tang Ao restless. However, Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu did not have that kind of relationship, so Tang Ao did not do anything improper. After Tang Ao put Xia Qinyu down, Xia Qinyu suddenly said, "Senior brother Tang Ao is really open and aboveboard. Even in such a situation, you can still sit still." Chapter 665. After Tang Ao began to cultivate, Xia Qinyu also sat down cross-legged. Xia Qinyu quickly discovered the bone-piercing chill that Tang Ao had mentioned just now. This kind of chill couldn't be dispelled by spiritual power, so Xia Qinyu felt her body slowly turn cold as if she was about to become an ice sculpture. At this moment, Tang Ao's situation wasn't much better than Xia Qinyu's. When the two of them hugged just now, although it was cold, he could still resist it. But at this moment, Tang Ao only felt like the chill had penetrated into his bones, so cold that he couldn't bear it. Even a layer of frost appeared on Tang Ao's eyebrows again. Seeing this situation, Tang Ao smiled bitterly. "Junior sister Xia, let's hug each other for warmth, otherwise we'll really freeze to death here." Xia Qinyu was unconscious just now, so she didn't feel anything when Tang Ao hugged her. But now that she was conscious, it was very awkward for Tang Ao to hug her again. But if she didn't use Tang Ao's method of hugging each other for warmth, Xia Qinyu didn't have any good ideas. So Xia Qinyu bit her lip and finally nodded. It wasn't that Xia Qinyu rejected Tang Ao, but Xia Qinyu felt that this kind of thing was too embarrassing. If it wasn't for the fact that it was a matter of life and death, Xia Qinyu really didn't want to do this. But the ice and snow underground were too strange, there seemed to be no other way to expel the chill in her body. Thinking of this, Xia Qinyu put on a heroic look, as if Tang Ao's hug would do something to her. Seeing her like this, Tang Ao couldn't help but laugh. After Tang Ao laughed, Xia Qinyu immediately said angrily, "Senior brother Tang Ao, since you're making fun of me, I don't want to hug you anymore." Tang Ao couldn't help but reach out and touch Xia Qinyu's head. "Junior sister Xia, you're really too cute." In the end, Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu still used this method of hugging each other for warmth. But this time, Tang Ao couldn't hold Xia Qinyu in his arms like before. Of course, the two of them didn't hug each other either. Instead, he sat back to back and wrapped the two of them in a fox fur coat. "Sigh, we can't go on like this. We can't just keep hugging each other." Faced with this strange ice and snow, Tang Ao had lost his temper. Xia Qinyu didn't say anything because she didn't have any ideas at this time. After a while, Xia Qinyu said, "Senior martial brother Tang Ao, why don't we go up? Would it be better at a depth of 1,000 feet? Naturally, Tang Ao had also considered Xia Qinyu's suggestion. However, after reaching a radius of 300 feet, Tang Ao's soul power could still scan a radius of 300 feet around him. Since Tang Ao's soul power could scan a radius of 300 feet around him, Wu Ku and the others would naturally be able to do so as well. This was because although Tang Ao's soul power was strong, it was only comparable to Wu Ku's and the others' soul power. The only difference was that Tang Ao was only a martial artist on the 5th floor of Linghai Jing, while Wu Ku and the others were genuine life and death realm martial artists. We can go up a little, but not more than 300 feet. If we can't, we can try going up to 500 feet. The soul power of life and death realm martial artists is extremely strong. Even at a depth of 300 feet, they can still sense a radius of 300 feet around them. So if we go up to 300 feet, once we're discovered by Wu Ku and the others, we won't even have a chance to escape. Tang Ao didn't explain how he knew that a life and death realm martial artist's soul power could detect a 300-foot radius around them even though they were 1,000 feet underground. Xia Qinyu obviously believed in Tang Ao's words, so she didn't ask him. Chapter 666. In order to allow him and Xia Qinyu to escape successfully, Tang Ao had exposed his primordial sacred heaven bow. Tang Ao believed that a treasure like the primordial sacred heaven bow would be attractive even to Chu Feiyu and the others. Therefore, Tang Ao guessed that Chu Feiyu and the others were probably searching for him and Xia Qinyu in the snowfield. On the snowfield, 4 powerful figures flew across the sky. After the appearance of the snow monsters, no one dared to fly so boldly. This was because some powerful snow monsters would launch surprise attacks on warriors flying on the snowfield without warning. Many warriors had lost their lives due to the sneak attacks of these snow monsters. However, these 4 people seemed to have no scruples and were not afraid at all. Suddenly, Chu Feiyu, who was at the front, stopped and sneered. "Junior brothers and sisters, our mission this time is to kill all the genius warriors in the Black-Yellow continent in preparation for our Tianyang continent's future entry into the Black-Yellow continent." The silver-haired Bai Feng looked at Chu Feiyu and rolled his eyes a few times. He seemed to understand Chu Feiyu's thoughts after thinking about how long Wu Ku had been away. As Bai Feng expected, Chu Feiyu quickly said, "We have been in the snowfield for a long time. Among the warriors in the snowfield, the highest cultivation level is only at the 7th floor of Linghai Jing. This kind of strength is not a threat to us at all." "Senior brother Chu Feiyu, what do you mean?" It was Kong Nian Fei who spoke this time. Although she had somewhat guessed what Chu Feiyu meant, she still asked. Chu Feiyu frowned after hearing Kong Nian Fei's question. His sect master had said that the 5 of them must act together no matter what happened in the Black-Yellow continent. He had made it very clear that the warriors of the Black-Yellow continent on the snowfield were no match for them at all. There were many treasures in the snowfield, so he gestured for everyone to act separately. However, Kong Nian Fei seemed to be pretending not to understand and deliberately embarrassed him. If it was someone else, Chu Feiyu would definitely kill the other party secretly even if he would not act immediately. He had always been a vengeful person. However, he really couldn't do anything to Kong Nian Fei. Among the 5, he and Kong Nian Fei were the strongest, both at first-layer life and death realm. The white-browed silver-haired Bai Feng and the white-browed black-haired Mo Gu were the second most powerful, being at the mid-first layer of the Sea of Souls realm. Meanwhile, Wu Ku, who had found an excuse to leave, was the weakest of them all, only at early Sea of Souls realm. Although Wu Ku was weak, he was not lacking in ambition. When he saw Tang Ao's sacred heavenly bow, he immediately had an idea. Chu Feiyu had intended for everyone to split up, so when Wu Ku said that he wanted to go back and wait for the kid, Chu Feiyu agreed without hesitation. Although Chu Feiyu didn't want to say it out loud, he wouldn't avoid it. "What I mean is, we'll each be responsible for one of the 5 regions in this snowfield. We'll meet up here after we've cleaned up the small fries in our respective areas." Chapter 667. Tang Ao didn't know that Chu Feiyu and the others had split up. At this moment, Tang Ao was still thinking of ways to overcome the cold underground. This time, Tang Ao's method was still very old, but it was slightly better than huddling together for warmth. Tang Ao set up a defensive array formation where he and Xia Qinyu were, and then lit a bonfire between the two of them. After Tang Ao lit the bonfire, the temperature in the underground space rose by a few degrees. At the same time, because of Tang Ao's defensive array formation, the temperature inside the array formation wouldn't escape to the outside and cause the ice and snow to melt. Tang Ao looked at the 4th and 5th grade spiritual herbs and spiritual materials that he used as fuel in front of him and felt helpless. Most likely, only he and Xia Qinyu could enjoy this bonfire. Xia Qinyu was also speechless about Tang Ao's reckless behavior. She really didn't think that Tang Ao would actually use spiritual herbs and spiritual materials to burn like firewood. Although the bonfire dispelled some of the cold, the two of them were still extremely cold. Tang Ao felt the cold in his body and looked at the bonfire in front of him with a bitter smile. Although the bonfire was extremely precious, it didn't help much with the cold in their bodies. Such a cold was something that Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu still couldn't resist. The two of them had only been separated for a while, and Tang Ao's body gradually turned cold. As Tang Ao's soul power swept through his body, Tang Ao saw that his meridians were gradually freezing up. Seeing this, Tang Ao was very helpless. Do I really have to go up? Right now, Tang Ao really didn't want to go up, but there was no way for Tang Ao to overcome this strange cold. That's not right. Tang Ao suddenly thought that after this bonfire was lit, it did slow down the accumulation of cold in their bodies to a certain extent. However, although this bonfire was made of first-class materials, it was ultimately an ordinary fire. Xia Qinyu did obtain an extraordinary fire not long ago. Thinking of this, Tang Ao hurriedly said to Xia Qinyu, "Junior sister Xia, have you refined your peach blossom flame?" Although Xia Qinyu did not understand why Tang Ao asked this, she still shook her head. "I don't have time to refine it. What does senior brother Tang Ao want to do with the peach blossom fire? The ice and snow here is too cold. After the peach blossom fire is ignited, the temperature is extremely terrifying. These ordinary flames are not enough to resist the cold, but the peach blossom fire is indeed enough. So, I think, as long as you refine the peach blossom fire, the problem of the cold in this underground space will be solved." After Tang Ao finished speaking, he said to Xia Qinyu, "I will first light a few more bonfires here, you hurry up and refine the peach blossom fire." After learning about Tang Ao's plan, Xia Qinyu took out the jade bottle containing the peach blossom fire without much consideration. Xia Qinyu broke the seal on the jade bottle, and a peach blossom-shaped flame floated out. After the peach blossom fire floated out, it immediately tried to escape. However, the moment it tried to escape, Xia Qinyu's soul power instantly enveloped it. When Xia Qinyu's soul power and the peach blossom fire came into contact, Xia Qinyu's soul felt a burning pain. At this moment, Xia Qinyu also understood how terrifying the temperature of the peach blossom fire was. A martial artist's soul power was a special existence in the world. Even if a martial artist's soul power was immersed in magma, the scorching temperature of the magma would not affect the martial artist's soul power at all. Chapter 668. Among the heavenly flames, the peach blossom fire was considered to be above average. It wasn't hard to refine, so after Tang Ao lit up the 9 bonfires, he quietly waited for Xia Qinyu to refine the peach blossom fire. After Tang Ao lit up the 9 bonfires, the space did warm up a little. Although Tang Ao was willing to use the level 4 spiritual herbs and spiritual materials as firewood, Tang Ao had limited level 4 spiritual herbs and spiritual materials. Although Tang Ao still had some level 5, level 6, and level 7 spiritual herbs and spiritual materials, These things were too precious. No matter how wasteful Tang Ao was, he couldn't bear to burn these spiritual herbs and spiritual materials. He could burn them to his heart's content in the underworld emperor mystic realm, but it would be difficult to obtain these spiritual materials after leaving the mystic realm. Xia Qianyu's process of refining the peach blossom fire was just as Tang Ao expected. Although she encountered some problems at the beginning, she quickly refined the peach blossom fire. After refining the peach blossom fire, Xia Qianyu waved her hand and a huge ball of peach-red flame appeared between Tang Ao and Xia Qianyu. After this ball of flame appeared, the surrounding temperature suddenly increased. At this moment, Tang Ao felt like he was in a snow cave a moment ago, but in an instant, he was in the mouth of a volcano. Even the defensive array that Tang Ao had set up was creaking when this ball of flame appeared. It was obvious that it couldn't withstand such high temperature and was about to collapse. Seeing this scene, Tang Ao hurriedly shot out a few array flags to stabilize the defensive array. Xia Qianyu also realized that the temperature of the peach blossom fire was too high, so she slowly adjusted the temperature of the peach blossom fire. Tang Ao could also clearly feel that the temperature of the peach blossom fire was slowly decreasing. Finally, the temperature of the peach blossom fire dropped to a temperature that could dispel the cold and was comfortable. After solving the problem of the cold underground, Tang Ao also heaved a sigh of relief. Tang Ao and Xia Qianyu were both Sea of Souls realm martial artists. If two Sea of Souls realm martial artists couldn't even handle a little bit of the cold underground, it would be too shameful. Fortunately, Xia Qianyu had obtained this peach blossom fire not long ago. Otherwise, the two of them would have really gone up. In this 200 feet of ice and snow, even if Tang Ao used his full strength, his soul force would only be able to travel an inch away from his body. At such a distance, a martial artist's soul force would already be useless. In a situation where they couldn't use their soul power, Chu Feiyu's team of 5 would undoubtedly be searching for a needle in a haystack if they wanted to find Tang Ao. Therefore, Tang Ao could cultivate without worry. After deciding to cultivate, Tang Ao took out a pile of spirit stones. Along the way, Tang Ao came across several spirit stone mines. It could be said that what Tang Ao lacked the most right now was cultivation. What he lacked the least was spirit stones. These spirit stone mines were extremely secretive. In the entire underworld Emperor's secret realm, apart from those with heaven-defying luck, perhaps only Tang Ao, an astral-reaching martial artist reincarnated, could find them. Xia Qianyu looked at the spirit stones that Tang Ao threw around like trash, and was inwardly astonished at how Tang Ao had so many spirit stones on him. Even the disciples of the mysterious Yellow 8 sects and the desolate ancient 6 families couldn't carry so many spirit stones on them at all times, right? However, Xia Qianyu didn't ask this question. Everyone had their own secret. Junior sister Xia, our current cultivation base is too low. Even with divine weapons, we are still not Chu Feiyu's opponent. Let's cultivate here for a while and raise our strength before making any further plans. Tang Ao didn't say anything else after saying this. Instead, he closed his eyes and sat down cross-legged, continuously operating the ancient god moving sky technique to absorb the surrounding spirit power. Along with the ancient god moving sky technique circulation, the mysterious yellow qi in Tang Ao's hidden jade body also began to circulate. The surrounding spirit qi seemed to be attracted by Tang Ao and was unceasingly surging towards Tang Ao. Chapter 669. Tang Ao and Xia Qianyu were cultivating 200 meters below the ground. However, almost everyone was looking for Tang Ao and Xia Qianyu. Wu Ku and the others were looking for Tang Ao because they knew that Tang Ao had the primordial sacred heaven bow. The other warriors were looking for Tang Ao because the rank 9 godly item that Murong Xiao tested was with Tang Ao. One had to know that Murong Xiao's earth vein spirit marrow was only a rank 2 godly item. However, what Tang Ao had was a rank 9 godly item. The Earth-level spiritual marrow was a treasure that countless people yearned for even in their dreams. As long as a person in the origin realm got a drop of the Earth-level spiritual marrow, their cultivation would increase by a small level. In other words, a first-level origin martial realm warrior could immediately reach the Spirit Sea realm after getting 9 drops of Earth-vein spirit marrow. What kind of concept was that? One had to know that most of the warriors on the scene would only reach the 9th level of the origin martial realm after 10 years or even dozens of years. With 10 drops of Earth-vein spirit marrow, one would be able to become a Spirit Sea realm warrior after 10 years or even dozens of years of cultivation. Although all the warriors in the Netherworld Emperor's secret realm had successfully reached the Spirit Sea realm, the secret realm only opened once every 10,000 years, and there was a cultivation restriction. It could be said that among everyone present, no one would have the chance to enter the secret realm again after 10,000 years. But even so, such a precious Earth-vein spirit marrow was only a rank 2 spirit item. It was hard for everyone to imagine how horrifying the rank 9 spirit item that Tang Ao had was. Although all the warriors knew that everything in the Netherworld Emperor's secret realm belonged to them. However, Tang Ao taking the rank 9 godly item for himself was too selfish in the eyes of many warriors. Even if they obtained a rank 9 godly item, they wouldn't contribute it to others. However, since they couldn't find Tang Ao, it was still very comfortable to scold Tang Ao. Ever since they had learned that Tang Ao possessed a 9th-grade divine object, these experts had been searching for Tang Ao throughout the entire snowfield. However, even after so many days had passed, there was still no news of Tang Ao. The news of Tang Ao having a rank 9 godly item was obviously not released by Murong Xiao. Although Murong Xiao knew that if he released the news, all the warriors would try to find Tang Ao. Then, Tang Ao would have nowhere to hide. Once the other warriors found Tang Ao, he would immediately go and kill Tang Ao. Then, not only would the rank 9 godly item be his, mysterious mirror would also be his. But Murong Xiao wasn't stupid. Naturally, he wouldn't do such a stupid thing. It was indeed easy to find Tang Ao by mobilizing everyone's power. Moreover, after finding Tang Ao, they could immediately go and kill Tang Ao. At the same time, they could take the treasures on Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu for themselves. But what about after that? Once this was done, all the warriors in the snowfield would know that the treasures on Tang Ao were in their hands. Although Murong Xiao was powerful, once he became the public enemy of the snowfield, it would not be easy for Murong Xiao to leave the snowfield alive. At the same time, even if he could leave the snowfield and return to his family with the rank 9 godly item, what could he do? The Murong family didn't have the final say in the Black-Yellow continent. The Murong family was just one of the 6 great families of the ancient wilderness. Chapter 670. The more precious something was, the more it had to be like this. Tang Ao's 9th-grade divine weapon was already precious enough. Hence, if Murong Xiao wanted to take it from Tang Ao, he could only do it secretly. Time passed the fastest when cultivating. Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu's martial Dao talent was not weak. Therefore, after Tang Ao arranged a grade 3 spirit gathering array and took out a lot of spirit stones, Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu's cultivation increased day by day. Ever since entering the Netherworld Emperor mystic realm, Tang Ao had been running all over the place. It had been a long time since he had a chance to cultivate. This was a rare opportunity for him to cultivate, and he had no choice but to cultivate. Hence, Tang Ao was prepared to raise his cultivation to the 9th floor of Linghai Jing before leaving. If he could, Tang Ao really wanted to cultivate to the life and death realm before leaving. However, Tang Ao knew that becoming a life and death realm martial artist was not something that could be achieved overnight. Even though he had many spirit stones in his storage ring, becoming a life and death realm martial artist was not something he could achieve just because he wanted to. According to Tang Ao's previous life's cultivation experience, it was possible for him to advance to the 9th floor of Linghai Jing in a short period of time. However, it would be extremely difficult for him to advance to the life and death realm. Moreover, it would not be easy for Tang Ao to advance to the 9th floor of Linghai Jing. Although Tang Ao had many spirit stones on him, and if Tang Ao was willing, he could even set up a 4th-grade spirit gathering array. Even so, he would probably need 5 years to break through to the 9th floor of Linghai Jing. Lu Lingxian had made it very clear that Su Ning had been poisoned by the Golden Fang Snake Lord. If she could retrieve the Shenong grass within a year, Su Ning would naturally be fine. After a year, in Lu Lingxuan's knowledge, no one could save Su Ning. Tang Ao had seen Lu Lingxuan's medical skills before. Tang Ao also knew that Lu Lingxian was not lying. Tang Ao had been trapped in the snowfield for 3 months. Although there were still 9 months left for Tang Ao to search for Shenong grass, he still had 9 months left. However, even if Tang Ao spent all 9 months cultivating, he would definitely not be able to break through to the 9th floor of Linghai Jing. If he did not break through the 9th floor of Linghai Jing, Tang Ao would not even have the ability to protect himself. How would he be able to find a way to break through? Fugue. Tang Ao slowly exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. Although he was safe now, he was still too powerless. Tang Ao felt that he had missed out on something very important, but as for what it was, Tang Ao had no idea. However, Tang Ao also knew that he could not go on like this. If he continued like this, even if he managed to reach the astral reaching realm in 100 years and managed to get out, Su Ning would have been dead for a long time already. Therefore, Tang Ao had to think of a faster training method to break through the 9th floor of Linghai Jing in a shorter time. At the same time, he had to find a way to break through the 3rd level and get to the Shenong Palace to get the Shenong grass. As for the inheritance of the Shenong Emperor, Tang Ao did not think it was that important. As long as he could get the Shenong grass, he would not mind even if he did not want the inheritance of the Shenong Emperor. However, what made Tang Ao feel helpless was that right now, not to mention the inheritance of the Shenong Emperor, he could not even think about how to get out of here. Tang Ao could guarantee that as long as he ran into Chu Feiyu and the other 4, he would most likely be killed. Therefore, Tang Ao had to increase his cultivation first before he could think about other things. Rather than increasing his cultivation, it was more like increasing his power. Chapter 671. Tang Ao's Jade Bone Life Spirit was one of a kind in the boundless world. Tang Ao's Battle Saint Bone Life Spirit, Mora Bone Dagger Life Spirit, Green Lotus Sword Spirit, and many others were all extremely powerful and difficult to awaken. Moreover, that was under the condition that Tang Ao did not use the primordial sacred sky bow. If Tang Ao used it, as long as his opponent did not exceed the life and death realm, he could use the primordial sacred sky bow to kill a peak 9th floor of Linghai Jing, or even a half-step life and death realm martial artist. However, Tang Ao's current enemy was not a peak 9th floor of Linghai Jing, nor a half-step life and death realm martial artist, but a true life and death realm martial artist. If it was just a life and death realm martial artist, Tang Ao would be able to kill the other party even if he was seriously injured. But Wu Ku and the others were not alone, but there were 5 of them. Even if Tang Ao could kill a life and death realm martial artist, he would definitely fall into the hands of the other 4. Therefore, Tang Ao had to think of all ways to increase his strength. Only when Tang Ao had the strength to deal with a life and death realm martial artist, could Tang Ao think about breaking through. In his previous life, when Tang Ao was at the Sea of Souls realm, it only took him half a year to break through to the life and death realm. This did not mean that Tang Ao's talent in his previous life was better than this one, but because Tang Ao had found a 10,000-year spirit spring in his previous life. What kind of existence was a 10,000-year spirit spring? Even the ordinary spring water in a 10,000-year spirit spring was equivalent to the earth-grade earth vein spirit marrow, not to mention that Tang Ao had refined the heart of the spirit spring. Therefore, during that period of time, Tang Ao's cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds. It only took him half a year to advance from the first level of the Sea of Souls realm to the life and death realm. But now, Tang Ao was not on the black-yellow continent, but in the underworld Emperor's secret realm. Therefore, it was naturally impossible for Tang Ao to find the spirit spring. Furthermore, a fortuitous opportunity like the spirit spring was something that could only be encountered by chance. Many warriors in the black-yellow continent had been searching for the spiritual spring. However, none of them had found it in the end. In addition to the spirit spring, if there was enough earth-grade earth vein spirit marrow, or heaven-grade earth vein spirit marrow, Tang Ao was also confident that he could break through to the life and death realm within half a year. However, these two things could only be found by luck. Although Tang Ao knew that Morong Shao had the earth vein spirit marrow on him, Tang Ao thought that the amount of earth vein spirit marrow on Morong Shao would not be that big. Therefore, even if Tang Ao robbed Morong Shao, the amount of earth vein spirit marrow he would get would not be enough for him to reach the life and death realm. Unless Morong Shao had the heaven-grade earth vein spirit marrow on him. At the thought of this, Tang Ao felt that Morong Shao might really have the heaven-grade earth vein spirit marrow. If Morong Shao really had the heaven-grade earth vein spirit marrow, then it would be a different story. However, Tang Ao immediately rejected this idea. That was, Morong Shao definitely did not have the heaven-grade earth vein spirit marrow on him. In his previous life, Tang Ao had obtained the heaven-grade earth vein spirit marrow when he was in the life and death realm. Tang Ao used the 3 drops of the heaven-grade earth vein spirit marrow to break through 3 levels in the life and death realm. If Morong Shao really had the heaven-grade earth vein spirit marrow, Morong Shao would have long been a life and death realm warrior. Not long ago, when Morong Shao and the other 2 were chasing after Tang Ao, Morong Shao was still on the 7th floor of Linghai Jing. He definitely had not reached the life and death realm. Otherwise, Tang Ao would have long been killed by Morong Shao. Although Tang Ao was extremely confident, Tang Ao did not think that he could survive in the hands of a life and death realm warrior. After eliminating the possibility that Morong Shao had the heaven-grade earth vein spirit marrow, Tang Ao fell into deep thought again. Chapter 672. Otherwise, by the time Tang Ao reached the 9th floor of Linghai Jing in 3 years, Su Ning would have been poisoned to death. Moreover, once the underworld Emperor Mystic Realm opened, it could teleport warriors out of it at any time. Even if Tang Ao wanted to stay in the underworld Emperor Mystic Realm to cultivate for 3 years, it would still depend on whether the underworld Emperor Mystic Realm would allow him to do so. Just as Tang Ao was thinking about how he could reach the 9th floor of Linghai Jing in a short time, Tang Ao suddenly realized that he had made a mistake. He had to cultivate to the 9th floor of Linghai Jing and use the primordial sacred heaven bow to kill Chu Feiyu and the rest before finding the method to clear the 3rd stage of the Shen Nong ruins. The reason why Tang Ao thought this way was that Tang Ao had always thought that the method to clear the 3rd stage would be on the snowfield and not below it. Thinking of this, Tang Ao subconsciously looked deeper into the ice and snow underground. Tang Ao felt that he had really made a mistake. The most important thing for him now wasn't to cultivate to the 9th floor of Linghai Jing and kill Chu Feiyu and the rest. Instead, he had to clear the 3rd stage as soon as possible and find the Shenong grass in the Shen Nong ruins to cure Su Ning of the poison. Previously, he had thought of breaking through the realm first and then finding the method to clear the 3rd stage. This was simply putting the cart before the horse. Fortunately, Tang Ao woke up in time. Tang Ao couldn't help but sigh. Even with his temperament, he would also be lost at times like this. If other warriors knew that they were trapped here and not because they didn't want to leave, they would most likely break down. And Tang Ao wasn't wrong at all. Although the treasures on the snowfield were good, this place was a little too strange. Hence, after 3 months, some warriors who had some gains or couldn't stand the snowfield were prepared to leave the Shen Nong ruins. The warriors who had some gains were already satisfied and felt that this trip was not in vain. Those cultivators who did not gain anything but still retreated felt that the snowfield was too stifling. It was very uncomfortable and dangerous. Therefore, they also decided to leave this place. The Shen Nong ruins weren't the only place in the Netherworld Emperor mystic realm that had treasures. This Shen Nong ruins was too strange, and everyone wanted to slip away. But soon, the first batch of warriors who were preparing to leave discovered that it was easy for them to enter, but when they wanted to leave, they discovered that there was no way to leave the snowfield. There was no way out of the snowfield. This meant that they were trapped in the snowfield. When they thought of how strange and terrifying the snowfield was, a few weak-willed cultivators instantly collapsed. Their minds became muddled. Moreover, everyone discovered something strange. The warriors inside couldn't get out, but the warriors outside were still pouring in endlessly. When Tang Ao first came in, there were at most 100 people in the snowfield, but now there were at least 1,000 warriors in the snowfield. This snowfield was too vast. 1,000 martial artists on this snowfield was not considered much. However, there were only about 5,000 martial artists who entered the Underworld Emperor mystic realm. After such a long time had passed, it was unknown how many warriors had perished. But even so, there were still so many warriors in the snowfield. This was truly an inconceivable thing. Although there were no written rules about which warriors were not allowed to enter the Shen Nong ruins, there were countless treasures in the Underworld Emperor mystic realm. Even if there were many treasures in the Shen Nong ruins, it shouldn't be enough to attract all the warriors. Chapter 673. Since he couldn't figure it out, Tang Ao decided not to think about it anymore. He had experienced a lot during this period of time, and he had been in a tense state all the time, so his mind was a bit sluggish. Tang Ao thought about it and decided to have a good sleep. When he woke up, he would make a decision. After thinking about it, Tang Ao wrapped himself in the soft fox fur and fell asleep. Tang Ao didn't sleep for long, because his hidden jade body in stone suddenly felt a strange rhythm. When he met Yen Yen for the first time, Tang Ao's hidden jade body in stone had also produced a subtle connection. However, when Tang Ao met Yen Yen again, this subtle connection could not be felt anymore. Although Tang Ao also had the hidden jade body in his previous life and used it to cultivate all the way to the peak of the Black-Yellow continent, becoming a peak astral-reaching realm level 9 martial artist. However, the mysteries of the hidden jade body in stone could not be fully explored by Tang Ao even in his previous life. It was just that in this continent, martial artists with the hidden jade body in stone were extremely rare. Moreover, martial artists with the hidden jade body in stone were not outstanding in the early stages of cultivation, and there was nothing special about them. All martial artists in the early stages of cultivation were relatively dangerous. At this time, their strength was low, and without the protection of a martial institution, they could be easily killed while training outside. Therefore, even if they had the hidden jade body in stone, if they didn't grow up, they would still be worthless. Even Tang Ao couldn't be considered to have fully grown up right now. However, in this life, the martial arts civilization in the Black-Yellow continent had declined a lot. Not only were there few astral-reaching realm martial artists, but even life and death realm martial artists were also rare. As for the life and death realm martial artists he met before, Tang Ao didn't understand at first. However, later on, Tang Ao understood why the spirit inside their bodies was different from ordinary people. As a peak astral reaching realm level 9 martial artist in his previous life, Tang Ao's vision was naturally different. Although Tang Ao had never left the black-yellow continent, he knew that there were two other martial continents next to the black-yellow continent. These two martial arts continents were called the Heavenly Sun continent and the Lingxiao continent. Although Tang Ao had never been to the Tianyang continent, he had crossed the Arctic Sea to the Lingxiao continent. However, the martial arts civilization of the Lingxiao continent at that time was as backward as the current black-yellow continent. Tang Ao was greatly disappointed and naturally gave up on the idea of going to the Tianyang continent. Tang Ao had seen warriors from the Soaring Heaven continent before, so Tang Ao was certain that the group of warriors he saw a few days ago were not from the Soaring Heaven continent. Since they were not from the Soaring Heaven continent, they must be from the Tianyang continent. Why did the warriors from the Tianyang continent sneak into the Xianhuang continent? After pondering for a moment, Tang Ao understood why they came to the black-yellow continent. Although the black-yellow continent, Lingxiao continent, and Tianyang continent were adjacent to each other, the martial arts civilization and cultivation resources on each continent were different. Among the three continents, the black-yellow continent was second to none in terms of martial arts civilization and cultivation resources 10,000 years ago. As such, there was naturally no problem. But now, although the cultivation resources on the black-yellow continent were second to none, the martial arts civilization on the Xuanhuan continent seemed to have fallen behind the Tianyang continent. Chapter 674. Just the inheritance of the Underworld Emperor's secret realm in the black-yellow continent was something that the Heavenly Sun continent coveted but couldn't possess. Even at the peak of the Heavenly Sun continent, there were only 9th-level astral-reaching martial artists. There were no existences beyond the astral-reaching realm like the Underworld Emperor or the Shennong Emperor. Therefore, these 5 life and death martial artists from the Heavenly Sun continent most likely wanted to kill all the martial artists in the Underworld Emperor's secret realm. The martial artists participating in the Underworld Emperor's secret realm were all elite disciples of various sects in the black-yellow continent. They were the new blood of the continent. If all or most of these martial artists were to perish in the Underworld Emperor's secret realm, it would be a huge blow to the black-yellow continent. It turned out that this was their purpose. Thinking of this, Tang Ao suddenly understood. However, even though Tang Ao understood now, there was nothing he could do. Even if Tang Ao risked his life, he could at most kill a life and death martial artist. However, after Tang Ao killed a life and death martial artist, there were still 4 life and death martial artists left. Right now, the strongest martial artists in the snowfield were Murong Zhao's group. However, in Tang Ao's opinion, even if Murong Zhao's group encountered Chu Feiyu's group, they could only run for their lives. Whether or not they could even run for their lives was still an issue. Just as Tang Ao was thinking about this, Murong Zhao had indeed encountered a white-haired, white-browed man. At this moment, dozens of martial artists' corpses were lying beside Murong Zhao and Bai Feng. These dead cultivators were all killed by Bai Feng just now. When Bai Feng appeared, Murong Zhao felt danger. Therefore, Murong Zhao persuaded the group of martial artists to attack Bai Feng together with him. However, Murong Zhao didn't expect Bai Feng to be this powerful. Under their joint attack, not only was he not injured at all, he even killed a group of martial artists with low cultivation bases. At this moment, Murong Zhao was feeling a little relieved. Didn't he just kill a snow monster and obtain 3 drops of heaven-tiered earth vein spiritual marrow? After refining these 3 drops of heaven realm earth vein spirit marrow, Murong Zhao's strength had already reached the half-step life and death realm. Right now, he only needed one opportunity or a short period of time before he could step into the life and death realm. However, what Murong Xiao didn't expect was that he would encounter a life-and-death realm martial artist before he entered the life-and-death realm. Judging from your martial arts technique and spiritual power circulation method, you don't seem to be a martial artist from the black-yellow continent. Even though Murong Xiao was shocked by the white-browed man's strength, he still asked with a calm expression. Bai Feng didn't expect Murong Xiao to be able to determine that he was a foreign martial artist through his martial skills and spiritual power circulation. However, he already regarded Murong Xiao as a dead man, so he generously admitted it. Yes, I am from the Heaven-Sun continent. After Bai Feng said that, he said to Murong Xiao in a playful tone, "Are you ready to go? If you have any last words, you can say them." Murong Xiao chuckled and said, "I'm sorry, I still have a use for my life. Goodbye." "You want to leave? Not so easy." Bai Feng immediately chased after Murong Xiao when he saw that he wanted to run. However, before Bai Feng could catch Murong Xiao, a jade talisman in Murong Xiao's hand was crushed. After the jade talisman was crushed, Murong Xiao instantly appeared 300 meters underground. Murong Xiao had been inspired after his first unsuccessful pursuit of Tang Ao. Since Tang Ao could hide in the ice and snow underground when he encountered danger, Bai Feng could naturally set up a teleportation array in the ice and snow underground. When he encountered danger, he could immediately teleport over to take refuge. Originally, this was just an invisible move by Murong Xiao, but he didn't expect it to save his life today. Chapter 675. After Murong Xiao escaped underground, Bai Feng muttered to himself, "Are the cultivators of the Xianhuang continent all rats?" Previously, that kid called Tang Ao had also burrowed into the ground. Looking at the direction of the transmission array, that kid had also burrowed into the ground. "Oh right, what's his name again?" Bai Feng muttered to himself as he took out a booklet. The booklet didn't introduce spiritual materials or weapons. It introduced the top-notch disciples of the Xianhuang continent's sections. On this booklet there were 1,000 top-notch geniuses in the Xianhuang continent. Of course, more than half of those geniuses had died gloriously. Bai Feng opened the booklet. When he flipped to the 9th page, he saw Tang Ao's information. Other than Tang Ao's image, there were also some introductions of Tang Ao. Tang Ao, male, from the 7 Kills sect. Currently, 11 known fate spirit. After reading Tang Ao's introduction, Bai Feng murmured, "He was at the peak of the 9th level of the Origin martial realm half a year ago. He only reached the 5th floor of Linghai Jing half a year after coming to the Netherworld Emperor's secret realm. How did he rank 6th on the blood kill list?" Bai Feng seemed to be talking to himself, but from his expression, he seemed to be talking to someone else. However, there was no one around Bai Feng. There was no one around him, but someone was really talking to him. Hurry up and check that person's information. That person is much more dangerous than Tang Ao. When he escaped, he didn't use a spatial talisman. He only used a teleportation talisman. It can be seen that he was already prepared. When he encountered danger, he immediately activated the teleportation talisman and went to a safe place. Although there was no one around, Bai Feng still knew who he was talking to. Senior Imogu is right. Tang Ao is only a cultivator from the 5th floor of Linghai Jing, but that guy is half a step into the life and death realm. Moreover, he is very scheming and prepared a method to escape in advance. After Bai Feng finished speaking, he continued to flip through the book. The atlas was called the Blood Kill List. The Blood Kill List was not designated by the people of the Tianyang continent, but by the people of the Black-Yellow continent. The fact that they were able to draw up the Blood Kill List meant that they were involved in every sect. However, Bai Feng wasn't interested. After checking Tang Ao's introduction, he flipped to the 38th page and saw Murong Xiao's introduction. Murong Xiao's introduction was similar to Tang Ao's, but Murong Zhao's introduction was more detailed than Tang Ao's. After all, Tang Ao had risen like a shooting star in the 7 Kills sect for less than 3 years. Before this blood kill list was completed, Tang Ao would have already entered the Netherworld Emperor mystic realm. However, Murong Zhao was different. Murong Zhao was a descendant of the Murong clan and had been an exceptionally eye-catching existence since he was young. Therefore, Murong Zhao's information was more than 5 times more detailed than Tang Ao's. Even the cultivation techniques that Murong Zhao might have cultivated, the martial techniques that he might have mastered, and even the life spirits that Murong Zhao had awakened were all recorded. Moreover, there were many battle records and fighting styles of Murong Zhao. After casually skimming through it, Bai Feng closed the booklet. Then, Bai Feng said to Emogu, who was hiding in the dark, "Senior Emogu, first senior brother told us to each take charge of one area. You can't just follow me like this." Even though Bai Feng knew that Emogu was around, he didn't know where Emogu was hiding. Emogu had no intention of answering Bai Feng's question. Chapter 676. Tang Ao made a careful comparison. Tang Ao discovered that his current location was not only not a snowfield on Lu Lingxuan's map, but a palace. Moreover, this should be where the Shennong Emperor's palace was located. However, Tang Ao had been in this snowfield for a long time, but he had not seen any palace. Furthermore, there were so many martial artists in the snowfield. If there really was an emperor palace here, some martial artists would have discovered it. However, the reality was that not a single martial artist had discovered this so-called Shennong Emperor's palace. If it wasn't on the snowfield, could it be underground? Tang Ao thought of this possibility, and Tang Ao felt that it was reasonable. The surface of the snowfield would not suppress a martial artist's soul power. Therefore, with the soul power of over 1,000 martial artists, no matter how hidden the Shennong Emperor's palace was, it would not be able to hide. However, it was different under the snowfield. Even a life and death realm martial artist would not be able to use their soul power beyond 1,000 feet. Furthermore, the space under the snowfield was not any smaller than the surface of the snowfield. Furthermore, most martial artists' soul power would be suppressed under the snowfield. It was rare for a martial artist like Tang Ao to be able to use his soul power under the snowfield. Therefore, if the Shennong Emperor's palace was really under the snowfield, it was not impossible that no martial artist had discovered it. After all, soul power could not be used in this underground snow, so one could only observe with the naked eye. However, with the naked eye, one could only see the area where he had broken through the snow. The other areas were still blocked by a thick layer of snow, making it impossible to see. At a depth of 2,000 feet, Tang Ao could not use his soul power. In this place, Tang Ao could only release his soul power 1 inch away from the surface of his body before it would be suppressed. This was because Tang Ao's soul power had advanced to the life and death realm. If Tang Ao's soul power was still on the 9th floor of Linghai Jing, he would not be able to release his soul power 2,000 feet underground. Although Tang Ao could only release his soul power 1 inch away from the surface of his body, it was still a great help to Tang Ao. In a duel between martial artists, most of the time, they relied on soul power to capture and evade the opponent's martial technique. If a martial artist could not even release a little soul power, his strength would definitely be greatly reduced. Just like in this snowfield, if Wu Ku dared to chase him down, Tang Ao had at least a 50% chance of killing him. However, if Tang Ao fought with Wu Ku on the snowfield, Tang Ao would only have a 10% chance of killing Wu Ku with the help of the primordial sacred heavenly bow. When Tang Ao thought of the possibility that the Shennong Emperor Palace was in the snowfield, he took out the animal skin scroll. At this moment, Xia Qianyu's peach blossom fire was still suspended between Tang Ao and Xia Qianyu. Waves of warm aura sprinkled on Tang Ao like sunlight. and in the conversation or the scorching heat, the surrounding cold air was also dispersed. In the area where Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu were resting, there was no cold air that could penetrate. After Xia Qinyu adjusted her breath, she saw that Tang Ao had been staring at the animal skin scroll. Xia Qinyu asked curiously, "Senior brother Tang Ao, what is this?" "This is the map of the Shennong ruins." Tang Ao did not hide anything from Xia Qinyu. Now, Xia Qinyu and him could be considered friends in times of adversity. Not long ago, when Tang Ao encountered Chu Feiyu and the others, if he and Xia Qinyu had not worked together, he would not have escaped from Chu Feiyu and the others. Chapter 677. Tang Ao didn't know that Xia Qinyu had thought so far ahead. If he had known, Tang Ao would have explained to Xia Qinyu that this map hadn't come from the Netherworld Emperor's mystic realm 10,000 years ago. It had been given to him by Lu Lingxian not too long ago. At this moment, Tang Ao was still comparing the map with what he had seen and heard. On the map, the snowy plains that Tang Ao and the others were in was where the Shennong Emperor Palace was located. But now, besides the vast snowy plains, Tang Ao didn't even see a shadow of the Shennong Emperor Palace. After her initial shock, Xia Qinyu asked carefully, "Senior brother Tang Ao, can I take a look at this map?" The Shennong Ruins map was too precious. Even though Xia Qinyu and Tang Ao had a good relationship, Xia Qinyu didn't dare to take a look without Tang Ao's permission. Tang Ao hadn't expected Xia Qinyu to be so reserved. He said casually, "Junior sister Xia, feel free to take a look." Tang Ao handed the animal hide over to Xia Qinyu and fell into deep thought. According to Lu Lingxian, she had been trapped in the Shennong ruins for over 100 years. She had always been in the periphery of the Shennong ruins, so there shouldn't be any problems with this map. If there was a problem with this map, it would be very difficult for Lu Lingxian to survive in the Shennong ruins for hundreds of years. Xia Qinyu looked at it for a while before letting out a soft cry. "Junior sister Xia, did you discover anything?" If Xia Qinyu really discovered something, Tang Ao might be able to leave this place or find the Shennong Emperor Palace. "Senior brother Tang Ao, according to the map, the area we are in now is where the Shennong Emperor Palace is. However, there isn't anything around here." Tang Ao secretly thought that Xia Qinyu was really meticulous. After looking at the animal hide for a while, she had discovered the problem. Moreover, Tang Ao had been too puzzled to realize that the area they were in was where the Shennong Emperor Palace was. However, this animal hide was a map after all. Hence, Tang Ao had no way of knowing where the Shennong Emperor Palace was. If there's no problem with this map, the Shennong Dharch Palace isn't on the snowfield. It's under the snowfield, Tang Ao guessed after knowing that the Shennong Dharch Palace might be nearby. "Senior brother Tang Ao, I don't think it's on the snowy plains. If the Shennong Emperor Palace is on the snowy plains, then with so many warriors there, it is impossible Shennong Emperor Shennong Palace would be found. Find it. So I'm thinking, could the Shennong Imperial Palace be down here?" As Xia Qinyu spoke, she looked deeper into the ground. "Junior sister Xia, I think the Shennong Emperor Palace is very likely to be below. It's just that the stone tablet at the entrance of the Shennong Relic says that there are 3 levels in the Shennong Relic. However, this should only be the 3rd level. Why did the Shennong Emperor Palace appear before the 3rd level is passed?" Tang Ao voiced out his doubts. "I don't know, but I think the Shennong Emperor Palace seems to be below." Faced with Tang Ao's doubts, Xia Qinyu did not know, so she could only speak her thoughts. "In that case, why don't we go down and have a look?" Even though Tang Ao had the sky polar eyes, when Tang Ao used the sky polar eyes to peek at the snow below, Tang Ao could only see about 100 feet of snow. The further down he went, the more blurred the sky polar eyes became. Tang Ao knew that this was not the effect of the surrounding strange snow, but the effect of the special array in this space. Chapter 678. Of course, there was another possibility, which was that the successor that the Shennong Emperor was looking for was a martialist with the sky polar eyes. Thinking of this, Tang Ao felt that it was very possible. Although Tang Ao's strength did not make a breakthrough during this period of seclusion, his soul power had broken through to the life and death realm. Coupled with the insights he had gained during this period of time, Tang Ao had comprehended a new usage of the extreme sky pupils. He could use the sky polar eyes to summon an extreme frost barrier. This barrier could be used to defend against a martialist's attacks and also to defend against the cold chi. Although Tang Ao had never used the extreme cold cover before, Tang Ao could faintly feel that he could use the extreme cold cover to reach the bottom of the snowfield. Senior brother Tang Ao, let's go take a look together. After Tang Ao made his decision, Xia Qinyu also decided to go underground with Tang Ao. Alright. Although this peach blossom fire is not the best flame in the world, it should be able to support us underground. If the peach blossom fire cannot support us underground, you can wait for me above. I can use the sky polar eyes to go underground, but I am not proficient with it yet, so I cannot bring you down. Hearing Tang Ao say that the peach blossom fire should be able to support the two of them underground, Xia Qinyu was a little nervous. She was worried that she could not help Tang Ao go underground. After all, after meeting Tang Ao in the snowfield, Tang Ao had been taking care of her. Therefore, if she could not help Tang Ao, Xia Qinyu would feel very disappointed. Fortunately, hearing that Tang Ao could use the sky polar eyes, Xia Qinyu said happily, Senior brother Tang Ao, since you can use the sky polar eyes, I will wait for you here. Tang Ao and Xia Qinyu had been together for a long time, so he naturally knew what Xia Qinyu was thinking. However, Tang Ao still said, Junior martial sister Xia, how about this? You use the peach blossom fire to protect yourself, and I'll use the heavenly polar eyes to block the cold air. We'll go down and take a look together. This Shennong Emperor is very likely an expert who has surpassed the astral-reaching realm. In his inheritance ruins, there will certainly be many opportunities. Xia Qinyu looked at Tang Ao in surprise after hearing what Tang Ao said. If she hadn't known Tang Ao for a long time and knew that Tang Ao wouldn't speak without thinking, Xia Qinyu would have suspected that Tang Ao was lying to her. Warriors who have surpassed the astral-reaching realm? What realm is that? As far as Xia Qinyu knew, astral-reaching realm martial artists were already legendary existences. As for martial artists who had surpassed the astral-reaching realm, they did not even exist in legends. If Xia Qinyu knew that Tang Ao, who was right next to her, was a reincarnated astral-reaching realm martial artist, how would she feel? However, Tang Ao did not plan to tell Xia Qinyu about this. So what if he was a reincarnated astral-reaching realm martial artist? Right now, he was still being forced to hide in a snow cave by a few life and death realm ants. Tang Ao shook his head. As for what was above the astral-reaching realm, Tang Ao also did not have an answer. However, Tang Ao had trained to the peak of astral-reaching realm level 9 in his previous life, so he naturally knew that astral-reaching realm level 9 was not the end of the martial Tao. Moreover, Tang Ao felt that the peak of astral-reaching realm level 9 was not the end of the martial Tao, and might not even be counted as half of it. However, right now, Tang Ao did not have any evidence to prove his words, and even Tang Ao himself was not very clear about it. Therefore, Tang Ao did not say these thoughts out loud. Chapter 679. After deciding to explore deeper underground, Tang Ao didn't waste any more time. Tang Ao immediately closed his eyes and started to use his sky polar eyes. As Tang Ao used his sky polar eyes, a blue transparent light shield enveloped Tang Ao. Although this light shield was called the Extreme Cold Shield, neither Xia Qinyu, who was outside, nor Tang Ao, who was inside, felt the slightest chill from the extreme cold shield. Tang Ao was surprised by the uniqueness of the extreme cold shield, but Tang Ao was sure that there were no problems. This was indeed the extreme cold shield. However, Tang Ao was also puzzled. This extreme cold shield didn't seem to have any chill at all. However, Tang Ao and Xia Qianyu didn't notice that after Tang Ao's extreme cold shield appeared, the peach blossom flame that was quietly burning at the side trembled. Although Tang Ao felt that this extreme cold shield was a little strange, Tang Ao didn't doubt the ability of the extreme cold shield. This was because after he was protected by the extreme cold shield, Tang Ao really couldn't feel the cold outside at all. Junior sister Xia, get ready. We are leaving. Oh, okay. After Xia Qianyu finished speaking, with a move of her mind, she copied Tang Ao's actions and condensed a fire shield around her. After that, Xia Qianyu and Tang Ao looked at each other, then they went underground together. At first, Tang Ao and Xia Qianyu didn't notice anything unusual. It was only after they went more than 10 feet underground that Xia Qianyu's peach blossom flame flickered. Even so, the peach blossom flame was still able to protect Xia Qianyu from the surrounding chill. As for Tang Ao, he didn't feel anything at all in the extreme cold shield. Tang Ao also saw the changes in the peach blossom flame. Just now, Tang Ao was a little worried that the peach blossom flame wouldn't be able to protect Xia Qianyu to the depths of the earth. He didn't expect that the peach blossom flame would change after just a few dozen feet. Fortunately, although the peach blossom fire had changed, it could still protect Xia Qianyu from the surrounding cold air. Therefore, Tang Ao and Xia Qianyu continued to descend. After the two of them had descended a distance of 200 zhang, the peach blossom flame flashed with increasing frequency. Although the peach blossom flame was still able to isolate the surrounding cold energy, Tang Ao could not help but sigh helplessly. Although the peach blossom fire wasn't one of the strongest flames in the world, it was still above average among the strange flames in the world. But in this underground ice and snow, the peach blossom fire was so weak. The two of them had only traveled 200 feet, and the peach blossom fire was already unable to withstand the surrounding cold air. While sighing at the peach blossom fire's weakness, Tang Ao was also secretly surprised at the power of the extreme cold shield. This was because at this moment, Tang Ao didn't feel any changes in the extreme cold shield. Now, the extreme cold shield didn't fluctuate at all. If it wasn't for the fact that Tang Ao wasn't proficient in using the extreme cold shield, Tang Ao really wanted to expand the extreme cold shield and use it to protect Xia Qianyu. However, although Tang Ao could use the sky polar eyes, Tang Ao was still a warrior with the sky polar eyes. Therefore, after Tang Ao comprehended the extreme cold shield, no matter how hard Tang Ao tried, the extreme cold shield could only protect himself. If he wanted to use the extreme cold shield to protect himself and Xia Qianyu at the same time, Tang Ao still didn't have the ability to do so. Even if he used the extreme cold shield to protect Xia Qianyu alone, Tang Ao wouldn't be able to do it. Chapter 680. After seeing Xia Qianyu's condition, Tang Ao said to Xia Qianyu, "Junior sister Xia, it looks like the peach blossom fire can't protect you any further. Why don't you wait for me at the previous place? I'll continue to investigate." Xia Qianyu nodded. When they descended to a distance of 400 feet, the peach blossom fire kept sending out thoughts to stop Xia Qianyu. It was obvious that the peach blossom fire was having a hard time at 400 feet. After 500 feet, the peach blossom fire had reached its limit. "Senior brother Tang Ao, be careful. I'll go up first." After Xia Qianyu finished speaking, she hurried towards the snow cave that the two of them had been hiding in. The peach blossom fire was able to move easily at a depth of 600 feet under the snowfield. After Xia Qianyu went up, Tang Ao continued to go down. Under the protection of the extreme cold shield, Tang Ao was now 280 feet under the snowfield. At this depth, Tang Ao's extreme cold shield also changed. Tang Ao could clearly feel that the spiritual power flowing on the extreme cold shield had slowed down. Even so, Tang Ao decided that the extreme cold shield was very impressive. The peach blossom fire was an above-average flame among the mystical flames in the world. However, the peach blossom flame could no longer endure after reaching a distance of 250 zhang. On the other hand, the extreme cold barrier only showed some changes when it was 2,800 feet underground, and it was far from reaching its limit. Tang Ao didn't care about the changes of the extreme cold shield, and continued to go down. As Tang Ao continued to go deeper, even though Tang Ao was inside the extreme cold shield, Tang Ao still felt a trace of cold air. This cold air had forcefully seeped in under the cover of the extreme cold shield. After the cold air seeped in, the spiritual power in Tang Ao's body became a little sluggish. Even after sensing his own situation, Tang Ao still didn't have any thoughts of retreating. It was dangerous for Tang Ao to have such a situation with his spiritual force. However, Tang Ao still hadn't seen the Shenong Emperor Palace, nor had he come to the bottom of the snowfield. So Tang Ao wanted to continue to investigate, but Tang Ao's speed gradually slowed down. Finally, when Tang Ao was 400 feet under the snowfield, the blue extreme cold shield was full of cracks as if it was going to break at any time. At this time, Tang Ao also knew that he was at his limit. If he continued to go down, the extreme cold shield would soon break. Even with the protection of the extreme cold barrier, Tang Ao still felt a bone-chilling cold. This chill seems to have frozen Tang Ao's bone marrow. Tang Ao's eyebrows and hair also have a layer of white frost. The cold air seemed to freeze Tang Ao's bones. A layer of frost appeared on Tang Ao's eyebrows and hair. Tang Ao closed his eyes and felt the situation in his body. He couldn't help but laugh bitterly. After the cold energy invaded his meridians, the spiritual energy in Tang Ao's body froze, making it hard for him to circulate it. After the cold air invaded his meridians, the spiritual power in Tang Ao's body seemed to be frozen, and it was extremely difficult to circulate. If it was something else, Tang Ao would have retreated. No matter how good the treasure was, he needed to be alive to enjoy it. But this time, Tang Ao didn't come to the Shenong Emperor Palace to search for treasure. He came to the Shenong Emperor Palace to find the Shenong grass to save Su Ning. Chapter 681. Tang Ao could not believe what he was seeing. As an astral-reaching realm level 9 warrior in his previous life, Tang Ao was definitely not someone who was ignorant. Tang Ao had been to many top-notch sects in his previous life, but even the boldness of these top-notch sects paled in comparison to the Shenong Emperor Palace. Until then, Tang Ao had finally realized that Lu Lingxuan's map was not wrong. On Lu Lingxuan's map, the Shenong Emperor's palace was in this area. However, the beast skin scroll that Lu Lingxian had given to Tang Ao was only a flat map. Therefore, Tang Ao did not know that the Shenong Emperor's palace was hidden under this extremely cold and horrifying snow field. Although the discovery of the Shenong Emperor's palace had made Tang Ao very excited, this excitement was soon suppressed by the problem in front of him. The Shenong Emperor's palace was right under this snow field. From where Tang Ao was standing right now, he only needed to travel 100 meters to reach it. Normally, the sky polar pupil would be suppressed more the further down one went. However, after Tang Ao arrived here, he realized that the sky polar pupil could actually see through 100 meters of ice and snow. Even if Tang Ao used the sky polar pupil to look up, he could only see about 200 meters of ice and snow. Right then, Tang Ao had too many questions in his mind. But Tang Ao also knew that these questions were not the main point right now. The most important thing now was to find a way to get down to the Shenong Emperor's palace and get the Shenong grass from the Shenong Emperor's palace to cure Su Ning. However, Tang Ao realized that with his current power and skills, it would be impossible for him to get down to the Shenong Emperor's palace. Even though the sky polar eyes could see through the ice and snow 1,000 feet deep, Tang Ao knew that the remaining 1,000 feet of ice and snow would only get colder and colder with every step he took. At this moment, Tang Ao's extreme cold shield was already filled with cracks. Without a doubt, if Tang Ao continued to walk down, this extreme cold shield would definitely shatter. If he didn't go down to the Shenong Emperor's palace, he wouldn't be able to get the Shenong grass. If he went down to the Shenong Emperor's palace, the extreme cold shield wouldn't be able to withstand it. For a moment, Tang Ao was in a situation where he had a headache. For the sake of Su Ning, he had to go to the Shenong Emperor Palace. But now, with the strength of the extreme cold shield, it obviously couldn't support him to enter the Shenong Emperor Palace smoothly. If the Shenong Emperor Palace was 300 feet or even 500 feet deep, Tang Ao could grit his teeth and try. But now, the Shenong Emperor Palace was 1,000 feet deep. This made Tang Ao feel helpless. If it was 300 feet or even 500 feet, he could grit his teeth and persevere for a while. But 1,000 feet deep, Tang Ao felt that it wasn't grit his teeth and persevere for a while. Instead, he would be sending himself to his death. Tang Ao had to go to the Shenong Emperor Palace. As for how to get there, he had to think about it carefully. Tang Ao thought of an idea now, which was to let Xia Qinyu use the peach blossom flame to protect him. When the extreme cold shield couldn't withstand it, he could stare at the peach blossom flame and continue to descend. But Tang Ao quickly rejected this idea. If the extreme cold shield couldn't withstand it, how long could the peach blossom flame last? If he wanted to borrow the protection of this strange flame to reach the Shenong Emperor Palace, he would need a flame that was of a higher grade than the peach blossom flame. It was rumored that the Netherworld Emperor had a kind of immortal dark flame. It was one of the best among all the strange flames in the world. If Tang Ao could obtain this flame, he might be able to descend to the Shenong Emperor Palace. But Tang Ao had been in the Netherworld Emperor mystic realm for so long, but he hadn't even seen the shadow of the immortal dark flame. Chapter 682. If Tang Ao came to the Shenong ruins just to obtain the inheritance of the Shenong Emperor, Tang Ao would retreat without hesitation. Although the inheritance of the Shenong Emperor was good, his strength was not enough to enter the Shenong Emperor's palace. However, Tang Ao was confident that if he broke through the life and death realm, he would definitely be able to enter the Shenong Emperor's palace. However, Tang Ao didn't come to the Shenong Emperor's palace for himself, but for Su Ning. Therefore, even though Tang Ao didn't know when he could break through the life and death realm, Tang Ao didn't plan to retreat. After thinking for a moment, Tang Ao made an absolute decision. That was to recover his spiritual power on the spot and then enter the Shenong Emperor's palace in one go. Tang Ao thought again because Tang Ao could clearly see with the help of the sky polar pupils that there was no abnormal ice and snow in the Shenong Emperor's palace. This meant that the Shenong Emperor's palace was definitely not so cold. Therefore, as long as he could enter the Shenong Emperor's palace in one go, this matter would be half a success. The reason why it was half a success was because after Tang Ao got the Shenong grass, he still had to go back the way he came. Since he was going back the way he came, he naturally had to pass through the horrifying ice and snow again. After calming himself down, Tang Ao sat down cross-legged and began to meditate. After traveling 2,000 feet to the original position, the spiritual power in Tang Ao's body was almost exhausted. If Tang Ao went back, it would be fine. If Tang Ao wanted to go deeper, he had to recover his spiritual power. Tang Ao took out a pile of spiritual stones and placed them beside him. Then, he used the ancient God-moving sky technique and began to absorb and refine the spiritual power and the surrounding spiritual power. Tang Ao had a lot of spiritual stones in his storage ring, but Tang Ao didn't care about these spiritual stones. Although these spirit stones were piled up like a mountain, they were all low-grade spirit stones. Currently, the black-yellow continent's martial Tao was lagging behind, and the cultivation resources were also poor. 10,000 years ago, other than some warriors who had just started out, even Origin Realm warriors used mid-rank spirit stones to cultivate. But in this life, even if Tang Ao cultivated to the Sea of Souls realm, he could only use low-rank spirit stones to cultivate. This was not because there were no middle-grade spirit stones in the black-yellow continent, but because they were too rare. As for the upper spiritual stones that were above the middle spiritual stones, they were even more pitiful. As for top-quality spirit stones, Tang Ao estimated that there was an 80% chance that he did not have any more. The higher the grade of a spirit stone, the more complete the spirit artifact and heaven and earth laws contained within it. It was very beneficial to a martial artist's cultivation. Unfortunately, even though Tang Ao had joined the Seven Kills sect, a top-notch sect in the black-yellow continent, there didn't seem to be any middle-grade spirit stones in the Seven Kills sect. Actually, there were still some middle-grade spirit stones in the Seven Kills sect. It was just that these middle-grade spirit stones had been used up in the past few years. If these middle-grade spirit stones were given to one person among the 5 of Tang Ao's group, these middle-grade spirit stones would still be useful. However, if Tang Ao's group of 5 was given some middle-grade spirit stones to each of them, these middle-grade spirit stones would be almost useless. Chapter 683. If he was an ordinary martial artist, no matter how talented he would not cause such a huge commotion when he cultivated. However, Tang Ao had the invisible jade in stone body, so how could an ordinary martial artist be compared to him? In less than half an hour, the spirit stones around Tang Ao had all turned into ashes. After using up tens of thousands of low-grade spirit stones, Tang Ao's spiritual power had recovered by 60%. This time, Tang Ao wanted to enter the Shenong Emperor's palace in his best condition, so he naturally would not be stingy with spirit stones. Moreover, to the current Tang Ao, these low-grade spirit stones did not matter to Tang Ao. Tang Ao casually took out tens of thousands of spirit stones from his storage ring. These spirit stones floated around Tang Ao, and when Tang Ao used his cultivation technique, they all turned into ashes. After using up so many spirit stones, Tang Ao's spiritual power also quickly recovered. After another half an hour, Tang Ao's spiritual power and soul power were full again. After slowly exhaling a mouthful of turbid air, Tang Ao stood up. Looking at the broken extreme cold cover, Tang Ao's sky polar eyes focused, and the cracks on the extreme cold cover instantly recovered under the support of Tang Ao's strong spiritual power. The reason why Tang Ao wanted to go to the underground Shenong Emperor's palace in one go was because of the extreme cold cover, not because he was hot-blooded. However, although the extreme cold cover was strong, Tang Ao also knew that it would not be able to protect him from rushing into the underground palace. Even so, Tang Ao still wanted to give it a try. If he did not try, how would he know if it would work? After making up his mind, Tang Ao immediately went down into the ice and snow below. At his current position, Tang Ao's extreme cold cover was already very difficult. After Tang Ao went down, cracks appeared on the extreme cold cover again. These ice cracks appeared on the extreme cold shield. Every time a crack appeared, a trace of cold air seeped into the extreme cold shield. This cold chi was extremely powerful. Just a few strands of cold chi seeped in, but Tang Ao's meridians were actually frozen to the point of pain. Even Tang Ao's skin cracked from the cold. After Tang Ao's skin cracked open, the jade bone life soul in Tang Ao's body left and produced countless pale green spots of light. These spots of light constantly flickered around Tang Ao's body as they constantly healed the frostbite on Tang Ao's body. Tang Ao kept pushing the extreme cold shield down for 500 feet. Tang Ao knew that the extreme cold shield was about to reach its limit. Right now, the extreme cold shield was full of cracks, and it looked like it would shatter at any moment. Even though he knew that the extreme cold shield couldn't hold on much longer, Tang Ao still didn't dare to stop. He only had one chance. Since he was already halfway down, Tang Ao naturally wouldn't return empty-handed. After Tang Ao traveled another 300 feet, a crisp cracking sound rang out. Tang Ao's heart jumped. The extreme cold shield had shattered. Tang Ao scanned it with his soul power. The extreme cold shield was indeed broken. Now, the extreme cold shield was riddled with holes. Many places had completely shattered. Not only the cold chi, but the surrounding ice and snow were also squeezing in. Tang Ao's entire body trembled with spiritual power. At the same time, flames started burning in Tang Ao's meridians. This wasn't a martial technique, nor was it a secret technique. It was a method of burning blood essence. After supporting the extreme cold shield to this point, Tang Ao's spiritual power was almost depleted. However, Tang Ao also knew that he definitely couldn't give up now. He had to fight with his life on the line. Otherwise, he could forget about entering the Shennong Emperor's palace. Chapter 684. If it wasn't for the fact that Tang Ao's meridians were already extremely tough, Tang Ao's meridians would have been frozen into nothingness. Other than his meridians, Tang Ao felt that his limbs and bones were covered in a layer of ice, and his consciousness was starting to blur. Tang Ao hurriedly bit the tip of his tongue, trying his best to keep himself awake. If he lost consciousness in a place like this, he would lose consciousness forever. Under Tang Ao's desperate situation, Tang Ao was only 2 to 3 feet away from the Shennong Emperor Palace. If it was a normal day, Tang Ao would be able to cross this distance with a light leap. But now, in Tang Ao's eyes, this distance was like a natural chasm that was difficult to cross. At this moment, the extreme cold barrier that Tang Ao summoned with the heavenly polar eyes had completely shattered, and Tang Ao was also wrapped in the surrounding ice and snow. Tang Ao's spiritual and soul power were almost depleted. Although the heavenly polar eyes was powerful, it had always been a method that consumed a lot of spiritual and soul power. While Tang Ao was braving the extreme cold barrier, almost 99% of Tang Ao's spiritual and soul power was consumed by the heavenly polar eyes. Looking at the Shennong Emperor Palace in front of him, and his limbs and bones that were gradually losing consciousness, Tang Ao's heart hardened. With a roar, Tang Ao's body was immediately wrapped in a ball of flames. This time, Tang Ao didn't hold back as he started to burn his blood essence. He had to break through this barrier and reach the Shennong Emperor Palace. After Tang Ao started to burn his blood essence, Tang Ao's limbs and bones gradually regained some strength. Tang Ao didn't dare to hesitate, and once again dove downwards. This distance of 2 to 3 feet, Tang Ao seemed to be closing in inch by inch. Finally, after Tang Ao broke the last layer of ice, Tang Ao completely broke out of the ice and entered the Shennong Emperor Palace. And the Shennong Emperor Palace was indeed as Tang Ao imagined. There was no terrifying cold air here. After breaking the last layer of ice, Tang Ao directly fell from the height of the Shennong Emperor Palace. At this moment, Tang Ao had almost no spiritual power to protect his body, and there were many injuries on his body. If he was allowed to fall to the ground like this, Tang Ao would most likely fall to his death. Tang Ao had gone through a lot of hardships to get to the Shennong Emperor Palace. If he fell to his death at the last step, Tang Ao wouldn't be able to rest in peace. After falling halfway, Tang Ao felt that the spiritual power in his body seemed to have recovered. Tang Ao was overjoyed, and immediately used this trace of spiritual power to summon the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul. After summoning the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul, Tang Ao completely fainted. Now, not only was Tang Ao's spiritual power and soul power exhausted, but his body was also injured in many places. He had reached his limit. After Tang Ao fainted, he also fell to the ground from mid-air. The violent impact also woke up the unconscious Tang Ao. At this moment, Tang Ao's long black hair had turned white due to the excessive consumption of blood essence. But Tang Ao didn't care. He desperately burned his blood essence this time, and it was fortunate that he didn't run out of oil. This head of white hair would naturally improve after his strength recovered. Tang Ao barely supported himself to sit up, and then he adjusted his breath while looking around. Although this Shinong Emperor Palace was hidden underground, it was magnificent like a vast immortal palace. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.